In my country, if you were caught with a pamphlet that was not approved by the Communist Party, you could go to prison for 2 years. Communism, socialism, fascism is hell. If we as men, if we as fathers and mothers will not stand up for the children, they have no future. Come and get me, right? I'm not hiding. I did not come here with security and, probably listening to our conversation. So what? The pastors, the clergy, the priests have betrayed Jesus and sold him. And they said, if you go up, pack your bags because you're not coming out. So they intended to assassinate me. Family, God, faith, freedom. Those are the things worth fighting for, and life is not worth living without them. God and family is the most important thing.
Information covered up, censorship, corruption. The mainstream media have proven itself to be untrustworthy. I'm here to give a platform for debate, for truth, for open discussion. I'm introducing you to my podcast, Silenced with Tommy Robinson.
Who exactly is Tommy Robinson, or Stephen Yaxley-Lennon?
With the English Defence League, the EDL.
The problem is with Islamic
The
integration.
English far-right Islamophobic activists.
Since then, there's been organised protests across the country in London, Manchester, Leeds. People in their thousands are marching for Robinson's cause.
There is no such thing in this country as a Muslim.
Free Tommy Robinson!
Welcome to my latest edition of my podcast, Silenced. I'm in Canada. And who remembers at the height of COVID tyranny? I remember watching thinking, why is no one standing up? When they were closing religious buildings, when they were closing businesses. And then I saw one pastor, a Polish pastor in Canada, not just stand up, but literally chase the police from his church. I remember applauding. And then I saw the full weight of the communist government come down upon him. So it's my privilege today to meet and hear the life story of Pastor Artur Pawlowski. I've tried that 10 times, by the way. Let's take 10.
Cześć.
Cześć, dzień dobry. Cześć, dzień dobry.
Yeah, well, it's an honor to sit with you during craziness, even before the big lie, as I call it. The past 4 years, I have watched you standing up and fighting, and I was cheering you. The whole church was cheering you. Go Tommy, go Tommy. So that's what it's going to take. It's going to take a bunch of us encouraging each other to push this great evil that has been unleashed on all of us, and especially on our children.
I'd say that you, at the height of COVID, probably become one of the most recognised figures of resistance against it in the world. Yeah? Your arrest, everything that followed from it. But if we can, I just want to rewind to understand who you are. What made you the person to stand up at that time when all other priests weren't standing up? Yeah, they were closing churches. Yeah. What made you that person? So if I can just ask, where was you born, Arthur?
Well, I was born in Poland, behind the Iron Curtain, under the boots of the Soviets. But also I was I was born in a very peculiar country, Poland. We have been fighting for our existence since the very beginning. I mean, the history of Poland is history of fighting for freedom. So growing up in that environment, I grew up in a city that had a concentration camp. We played in the bunkers of the SS during the 70s and 80s. My grandma was in Auschwitz-Birkenau. She was experimented upon by Dr. Mengele, the angel of death. She lost two children. My family history, my grandfather escaped Siberia. It took him 2 years to come from Siberia to Poland. And of course, growing up during that environment, you hear stories from the older generation. My other grandfather and my grandma with my great uncle, they escaped from Soviets in Romania. They were captured by the police, and my great uncle lowered my grandma on the rope, and they came to Poland. So in our DNA, in our bloodstream, if you will, it's this fight for freedom. And of course, I also grew up in the 80s, seeing the solidarity movement with my own eyes, seeing the power of the people. You see, that's the message that I have for the masses. There is more of us than of them. Realize this. The moment you say no, so 50,000 communists were ruling over 36 million Poles until the millions said enough is enough, took it to the streets. But how did they do it? They did it peacefully, and they were chanting with this huge, massive cross. I don't know if you remember that. We want God. We want God. That was direct attack against the godless, evil, wicked communists. Because what we are observing right now is the wannabe pharaohs, the wannabe slave masters enslaving the whole humanity. They are the elites. According to them, they are telling you and me, you will own nothing and you will be happy. Why? Because they will own everything. They're telling you, you will be riding on a bicycle, eating crickets and owning nothing, while at the same time, they are flying private jets to Davos, eating the most expensive Japanese steaks and accumulating the biggest amount of land ever. Bill Gates has become the #1 landowner in United States of America. So you got to pay attention what is happening. Simply what I'm trying to say to all of you, this is a repetition of history. We've seen this before. Nothing is new under the sun. So I grew up in a place that simply have seen this before. And what I'm saying to the people is, I've watched this movie. You know, when you watch a movie, you know how it ends?
Yep.
I've watched this movie, I know how it ends. We must change the script.
Poland was wiped off the map, right? There was no Poland.
For over 130 years.
For over 130 years. So for people to understand Polish history, because maybe this is the reason why you're the man standing up, through your generations, through your grandparents, you've all heard the stories of what it's like.
That's
and
right.
Understand within a generation what it's like to not have freedom. I think the biggest civil uprising in history was in Warsaw, no? 200,000 with pitchforks to fight against the Nazis of the people. And I think Polish history, they've never been, in every war ever, they've been outnumbered 30-1. Minimum 30-1. So I think, so would you say that it's your upbringing and your understanding of what it's like to not have freedom and your family's fight throughout history for freedom, that you can see the reminiscence of what's happening now in Canada and in the West?
That's right. Also, every year that I go to Europe, I make sure, sometimes I take my friends from Canada, sometimes I'll take Americans, my family, of course, my children. I will take the time to go to Auschwitz-Birkenau. I'll tell you why. Because every single time I go over there, it's a good reminder to what happens when you don't put a check on people's power. Right now, we have a situation where there is no accountability to those lying politicians. There are no checks and balances. They do whatever they want, and there is really nothing we can do about this. The judges are corrupted. The police are just simply following orders. I'm a Polish man. I've heard this before. Nuremberg trials, when all those SS people came, those evil, wicked monsters, I call them, they showed up in front of the whole world and they said, I'm not guilty. I was just following orders. No. It doesn't work that way, and definitely doesn't work that way before God. Every man is accountable for what he has done. You will stand naked before the living God, and you will give an account for what you did, not what your wife did, not what your neighbors did, not what your politician did, but what you did. And if you were a good man, you will get a reward. If you were a wicked man, you will also get a wrath of God. You will pay for it. So, growing up in this environment, learning history, I think the problem we're facing right now, the most of the children, and then of course they grow up, this generation doesn't know history.
They don't know who they are.
They don't know. If you do not know where you came from, you don't know where you're heading. You see, I'm a proud Polish man. I'm not hiding I'm Polish. I mean, my accent even, it's not hiding it. I'm a Pole. I was born in Poland. Yes, it was crazy at times. The history of Polish people is a roller coaster. But that's my history. That's the history of my parents, my grandparents. I'm proud to be a Polish man, but I'm also proud to be a Canadian. My children were born here. My home is here. I am a Canadian. I came to love this land, and I'm a very patriotic man. I think we've lost that. Our children do not know in a big scale what patriotism even means. That God has given us this land for a purpose. It's a gift from God Almighty to you and to me, and He wants us to take care of the land, but also take care of each other. We've lost that, and it's by design. What they are doing right now And again, I have to go back to history. I grew up in hell. Communism, socialism, fascism is hell. I grew up in hell. And when you grow up in that kind of an environment...
What was it like growing up? Tell me that. So people understand, what was it like growing up?
Never-ending lineups.
What's that mean?
What that means is every Saturday my mom would send me to buy a loaf of bread once a week, and to buy a loaf of bread I had to stand in a lineup. I could not see the end of it. What it means is that I was 7, 8 years old, and they would send me 300-400 kilometers from home with luggage that I could not even lift, with meat, because we couldn't buy it here. You had to go somewhere else. What it means is that the government controlled everything, what you eat and how much you eat. They were giving you the food stamps. And on the food stamp, I'll never ever forget this, on those little stamps would say 2 kilos of pork or 2 kilos of, sausage. The government was telling you how much vodka you can drink. The government was telling you how much gasoline you can put into your car. The government was telling you where you can have a house, if you can afford it, but they were telling you if you can have it or not. The government was telling you if you can buy a car or not. Every single aspect of your life was controlled by wicked, evil, corrupted to the core bureaucrats. More, what happened also, those bureaucrats, because of the bribery, lying and cheating and stealing, turned the entire nation into a nation that was run by bribery, cheating and stealing. Not because the Polish people were bad people.
It's the only way you can survive.
You gotta survive. I mean, in the end of the day, I'm a pastor, I'm a clergy. The Bible is very clear, thou shalt not steal. But I'm telling you, Tommy, if I had a situation that I could not eat and my children were starving, I'll probably go and do something to get it, right? This way or that way. So that's what communism, that's what every ism turns people into. And everyone was afraid of everyone.
But everyone was afraid of everyone because they'd made everyone report on everyone?
Of course.
So you couldn't trust your neighbours, there was no trust in the community because they had the secret police?
Because that's by design. Why a man like me arose in such a quick way? Because I was the first Canadian, I don't know if you know that, I became the first Canadian to get the big lying ticket 4 years ago. I got this ticket at the beginning of 2020.
By ticket you mean fine, this massive fine, tens of thousands of pounds?
Oh, like millions of dollars.
Okay.
I got over 40 citations. My record is, and I've never met a man with the bigger amount of citations and tickets, 360 tickets, 120 court cases, and 16 arrests, plus many times I was detained. My son has been arrested 5 times already, my brother 12 times. So they're going after family, they're going hard. They are ticketing, harassing, intimidating. My phone has been monitored for the past 20 years. My beginning of resisting this evil did not start with a big lie 4 years ago. It started way before, when I started to feed the poor. Because you have to understand the system, the mechanism of this, what we are witnessing right now, the greatest takeover, or as I call it, the greatest takedown of the middle class. Because right now in front of your eyes, they're creating 2 categories of people. The slaves, the super powerful, the rich, and slaves, social insurance number, that's it. You'll own nothing, you will be happy, and you will have to report to them. They, the masters, will be telling you what you can and cannot have. That's communism, that's Poland that I was growing up. You couldn't talk freely because you were afraid. In my country, if you were caught with a pamphlet that was not approved by the Communist Party, you could go to prison for 2 years. If you were caught listening to a European radio, you could go to prison for 5 years. But prison was not like you think. Prison is what they send me to now, Canadian prison, which is hardcore concrete floor, no water, no washroom.
Solitary confinement.
Solitary confinement, metal cages. I'll tell you all about that later on. But the communist, socialist, fascist, enterprise, if you will, hybrid that we are witnessing in front of our eyes, they have one goal. They need to scare the people and they need to subdue the people. You cannot subdue the middle class because they can hire lawyers. They can push. They can come to the rally. They can come and protest you. Why do you think the Canadian and global governments forbid gatherings? Because they watched the Polish uprising in 1980. I'm telling you.
Tell me what happened in 1980.
So-
So you're in Poland. Tell me
So-
what happened in 1980.
I'm in Poland, growing up in hell, where the government was controlling everything. Fear was tangible. You could actually cut it with a knife. People were depressed. Why do you think so many Polish people turned into vodka? Right? The jokes about the Polish
alcoholics,
people.
yeah.
Right?
And Russian
Because
people.
no hope, hopelessness, depression. There was, it didn't matter if you were a hard-working man. You couldn't achieve anything unless you were a corrupted man, unless you were bribing. I remember as a kid, I couldn't pass my driver's license without giving a bribe to the teacher. Just that's how the system was. Everything was run by bribery. So you're growing up in that kind of environment where everything was twisted and perverted and evil. Of course, the history was manipulated. I remember growing up as a kid and the teachers were telling us about Joseph Stalin. I'm sure you're familiar with the name. And Joseph Stalin was the savior of Europe. We were told as kids to call him Dieduszka Stalin, which means Grandpa Stalin. So that's
Indoctrinating the children.
right. And of course, you learn later on that this man murdered more people, twice as many people as Hitler. But Hitler was the bad guy at that time.
Why do we never get taught that now? Why do we never hear about the atrocities of Stalin?
Well, because what we are seeing right now is a repetition of history. It's socialism and communism 2.0 or 3.0, whatever you want to call it. They have been working on this for a very long time. Communism, socialism is a godless system. And if you were wondering why, first of all, why did they want to muzzle you up? Because they were telling you symbolically, they knew that the virus is too small. They knew that the virus, the pathogen, is 1,000 times smaller than the bacteria, and this pampers on your face is not going to stop from coming in and going out. So why wear one? Because they were telling you symbolically, you have no voice. Your voice doesn't matter. And also your face means nothing. You're a nobody. You're faceless, nameless, nobody. You have no voice. You're a slave, symbolically. Masks were always associated with slavery. They did it to many, many tribes and different people through generations. They would put a mask on an individual, telling him
To take away his identity.
right? His identity. Also, have you ever wondered why they forbade the church people to gather? Because they learned from history, from the Polish uprising under the Solidarity movement, that that's where people gather. That's where there is an exchange of information. I was a businessman before, Tommy. We had this famous saying that information is more powerful than money. You know why? Because if you have the right information, making money, it's easy. It's the information that is difficult. Because if you know where to put your money, money makes money. So you can do that. But if you don't have the right information, you're going to be poor for the rest of your life. So they know that. When people gather, when there is an exchange of information, when two individuals are talking, suddenly your eyes will pop up. Wow, I didn't see this. I didn't know that. And also clergy, why they attack the churches? Because historically, that's where resistance happens. Why? Because a real Christian, and here we're coming to the whole story, that there are not many real Christians anymore.
The church has been infiltrated.
The pastors, the clergy, the priests have betrayed Jesus and sold him for 30 shekels of silver, for 30 coins. They sold him because of fear, because of trinkets, because of money or other things. So when a real Christian comes together, then God is the number one. Your obedience, allegiance, if you will, is to God because he's smarter than all of us combined together. He's the one that created us. And government, crooked government, hates that because now the government is competing with your thoughts, with your belief system. And if you don't bow before prime minister or president or mayor or police officer or whatever the man is, if you're not bowing to him, why not? Oh, they're bowing to God. Then we have to shut it down. It was fascinating to watch all of that because abortion clinics were open. Liquor stores were open
When?
during the COVID.
So during the COVID lockdown.
Marijuana stores
Yeah,
were
liquor
open.
stores. Yeah.
At the biggest lockdowns.
Then they shut gyms.
Right? In the middle of the biggest lockdowns, I remember my son's bed broke. So we had to go and buy him a new bed, and we went to IKEA. I could not believe it that at the front of the entrance to IKEA, it had a write-up and it said only 500 people allowed. Only 500 people. I could not have a brother for coffee.
Yeah.
According to them.
And nothing made sense.
Right? But I can take my brother, my mother, my whole family, and my whole church to IKEA, and that would be perfectly legal. So what I did, growing up in hell, you learn, you smell. When it shows up again, you don't have to think. You know right away this great evil that you escaped has come again. So when they showed up at the beginning of 2020, and told me I have to shut down my soup kitchen. I feed thousands of people in the streets of Calgary. We never stop feeding them. We still feed thousands of people, and I'm doing this for 25 years right now. So when they said I have to stop feeding the poor because we're in the middle of this crisis, I questioned them. I said, okay, let's say we are in the middle of this great crisis. Then my services are now needed more than ever. You're shutting down shelters. You're shutting down soup kitchens. What do you think is going to happen to 15 to 20,000 different individuals facing homelessness? No answer. I said, I'll tell you what will happen. They will go to the streets and they will whack grandma's head for $5. They will break into a car. They will break into a house, into a garage, into a grocery store. Because people need to eat. If you don't feed them, and if you stop us feeding them, then guess what is going to happen? Bad things are going to happen. No reply. I appealed it to the mayor, I appealed it to the premier, Jason Kenney at the time, and I appealed it to every minister in the province of Alberta. No reply. Zero. At that moment, I said to my family and to the church, this is all a big lie. I knew, because if they really cared about human lives, if they truly cared about saving people, then they would reply to me and would give me an explanation why I cannot keep saving lives by feeding those people that are desperately hungry. But because they didn't reply, I knew we are dealing with communism, fascism, and socialism combined together, because this is a hybrid. It's like they're flipping a page from a book called How to Become a Tyrant. And they are implementing one step after another, buying the media, shutting down any form of dissent, scaring political opponents or assassinating them, and in some countries shutting down any town hall meetings, church meetings, any place that people can receive or exchange information.
Explain to me what happened in because that exchanging of information, explain to me how important that was in 1980 in Poland. What was it that...
Oh, that was the power.
What happened?
That was the power, because you see, the mechanism of the enemy, of the tyrants, is isolation, segregation, separation. Why? Because they want you to feel hopeless. You must feel hopeless. You must come to a point in your life that you throw the hands down and say, there's nothing I can do. I cannot fight them. There's too many of them, and they're too big. They're Goliaths, right? They're the giants. When we come together, when Art and Tommy comes together, suddenly we exchange the information and we don't feel so alone. Suddenly I'll say something to you that your heart will leap, and you will tell something to me and my heart will leap, and suddenly we're better. We are feeling stronger. We are no longer alone. We're standing for what's right. God is on our side, and if we can find few more people like-minded, then we're a power horse. That's how revolution starts, and they know that. You see, here's the problem. They know history. Most of the people out there do not know history, because if they knew history, they would know how to counterattack this attack. I know history. So to me it was, okay, how the Polish people did it. I was just a kid. My wife was smuggling pamphlets for Solidarity Movement in a backpack.
What was the Solidarity Movement, so people understand?
We have been, let's go to 1939 quickly. Poland was attacked by the Nazis. First nation that was attacked by the Nazis. And the whole hell got unleashed. We've lost about 11, 12 million Polish people during the war from 1939 to 1945. You talked about Warsaw Uprising and there were multiple other uprisings. But we've lost our youths, we've lost our young men, the fighting men. So in 1945, the Russians came and just took over our country. We were enslaved by the Soviets because Germans wiped out our young men. There was not many that were able to fight. So the Russians just came in and took over Poland. So we were enslaved. While you in England and in America, in France, when you were celebrating the victory over the Nazi, over the Hitler, right, in 1945, we were crying because we were taken over by the Soviets, communists. Polish people were not communists. We were free. Capitalism was flourishing between the First War and the Second War. So we were devastated. We were destroyed. Tens of thousands of people were murdered, slaughtered by the Soviets, by Stalinism. So anyway, fast forward. I was born.
They came in and killed all the educated.
Oh, they killed.
When they came in.
Yeah. Oh, they killed hundreds of thousands of people. Tens of thousands, sent to Siberia. My grandfather, of course, even before that. And lots of people imprisoned and tortured for years. And then I was born, and I was born already behind the Iron Curtain under the boots of the Soviets. So that's the only thing I knew, slavery. We were slaves. When you went to school, you couldn't just buy what kids in England could buy. Oh, you could dream about it. You couldn't get necessities. If I had pens, and by the way, those are jeans. You don't even think about them, right? Like, when was the last time you thought, oh, jeans, wow, that's an expensive stuff? No, because it's like $20, $30. You don't even think about it. Well, that was 1 month. Every single day, a man had to work for one pair of jeans. So as kids, when you got one, it was like having a Rolls Royce. It's like, wow, it was something so precious. Everything I remember from my childhood, it was chasing after necessities of life. It was funny thing in the beginning of the big lie in 2020. Remember the shortage of toilet paper?
Yeah.
So I'll tell you a story. My wife doesn't like when I tell the story, but it paints a picture. I don't know why during communism there is always shortage of toilet paper. I have no idea. But that's the reality. So what we did, and I remember this for many years in Poland when I was growing up, that you had to take the propaganda papers, newspapers, and you had to cut them in pieces like this big, and you would break them. You break them and you make them straight and you break them again to use as a toilet paper. Because if you didn't do that, you would cut your bum. It was craziness. After you were done your thing, your bum was completely black because of the ink. So you've got 36 million Polish people running around with black bums. Now when I look at this, it's kind of hilarious, but at that time it was a horror movie. It was crazy. You could not go and buy a toilet paper. 2020 shows up, guess what? I'm looking on TV, people fighting for toilet paper. I turned to my wife and said, communism has arrived. Just like that, right away, because all of those things are symbols. And you can tell we're repeating a history by watching the symbols being unleashed on all of us. You couldn't just go to a store and buy whatever you need. There were restrictions, exactly like growing up under communism. That's why I say, and that's why I call those officers by their proper pronouns. It's all about pronouns right now, right? So I call them by the proper pronouns, Gestapo and Nazi. Why? What is Gestapo? People don't even know what that means. It means political police. That's what it means. Gestapo is simply a political police that was, obeying the Nazi regime during the Hitler era. I'll just shut this off. And but people don't know that. Nazi. Why did I say Nazis? You have to understand that I have been hunted down by those authorities since 2005.
Let's go through that story.
2000.
Let's go through. So first of all, so people understand what broke that in Poland, and how old was you when it broke in Poland to free the Polish? When were the Polish people freed?
Yeah. So,
and what was the solidarity movement to do that? So people listening understand, how did people come together? How did they resist it?
So Polish people tried to break away from communism from the very beginning, but they were crushed without mercy. We did not have enough able bodies men to fight because, again, the Nazis killed most of them, and then hundreds of thousands were arrested by Stalin. And so we didn't have men to fight, and the rest, they were working for the communist regime. So in 1965, there was an uprising in Poland. So just a few years after the war, the Polish people took it to the streets, and they were demanding freedom. They were brutally destroyed. But out of that fire, in a city called Poznań, out of that fire, the Hungary got free. I don't know if you remember the Hungary Revolution in 1965, 66, 67. So that started because of the Polish people in the city of Poznań. But the Russians brutally destroyed the Polish uprising. They tried to do the same thing with the Hungary people, but they didn't manage to do it. It was too far, and Hungary got freed. Then in 79, I believe, another uprising. So about 10 years later, Polish people rose, took it to the streets, fought for their freedom, brutally arrested, murdered, many clergy died, and that was over. And then it came 1980, and I remember this because I lived through this whole thing. Polish people finally decided enough is enough, and under a solidarity movement. What is solidarity movement? Solidarity movement started by the woman. Valentinovich was her name, and she was fired from her job. She had a number of kids, and in solidarity with her and other political dissidents that were brutally oppressed by the regime, few people stood, just few. And then when others heard about those people standing up, they joined in solidarity with her and them, and it grew. And then the word spread. You see, that's what they don't want. You know why there's censorship?
Yeah, because they know what.
Because they don't want us to know what's happening. You see, your video with your arrest, it was fascinating, and I said, what a dumb people those people are. They gave you free advertisement around the world, 35 million views of your arrest. I mean, it's like brilliant. When they came to our church, over 1 billion views of me kicking them out. So whatever they do works against them because God is helping us. God wants the people to know what's going on, and that's exactly what was happening in 1980. The word of uprising, peaceful uprising, resistance, non-compliance, kind of a general strike, if you will. I shall not work for you because you're treating me like a slave, and I am nobody's slave. Went like a wildfire, and more companies started to join. And soon, it started with literally few people. It was thousands, then tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands, and then millions. And what the government did, the first year, Solidarity Movement had 1 million members within the first year. So they outlawed Solidarity Movement.
Sounds familiar?
They outlawed Solidarity Movement, and guess what? The next 2 years, it grew to 3 million strong. And in 1989, at the collapse of communism, where a Berlin Wall fell down and Iron Curtain was broken, we had over 10 million strong. So what happens is, it's the same mechanism. They are afraid of the truth, but the truth is unstoppable. And the truth went like a wildfire from city to city, from town, from village to village, and people started to join. Because what it takes is a spark. A courageous man that says, I'm not going to do it. A spark. You are that spark. When people watch you, they say, if Tommy Robinson, don't get me wrong, you're no special. You got 2 legs, 2 arms, and a head, just like me. But you did something extraordinary. When they were looking for someone, when they were waiting for a man, then came Tommy Robinson. And they said to themselves, if he can do it, with his funny English accent. And then when they look at me, if this Polish guy with a broken English...
Which is why they have to set an example of us.
Right?
That's why they can't.
That's right. That's
why they won't stop.
Of course.
They have to send a message to the rest.
Because you gotta remember that they are flipping the pages of how to become a tyrant. Tyrants cannot allow Tommy Robinson running around free. They cannot allow clergy preaching the truth that sets the captives free, gives people messages of hope and strength and power, that God is bigger than prime minister, God is bigger than president, God is bigger than the elites, the psychopaths. That's a very dangerous message. And that's why they came crashing down so hard. But going back to the solidarity movement, it scared them so much that they invoked war measures, right?
Sounds familiar again. We'll get onto this.
The same thing.
Same thing. Go on.
So Polish government invoked that.
I can see the similarities here as we're going to get onto. We'll get onto what's happening now, but go on, carry on.
Of course, it's all identical. If only people knew history, they would never ever allow this to happen again.
You can understand why every Polish person in there who's your age understands, because you remember it.
Yeah.
We don't in Britain. We didn't live under this. Yeah?
No, you didn't, and Canadians didn't as well.
No, so we don't understand the fight for communism or identity. We think that it's just we're born into this freedom.
Yeah, you're not.
We don't realise that there's never been freedom like this. We don't realise that.
Freedom is that fragile, and is that close of you losing it if you are not vigilant, if you're not paying attention what those crooks are doing. You can lose it during your lifetime. And for Polish people like me, we already lived in hell. We don't want to endure the same thing again. And definitely, we don't want our children to endure what we had to endure during the boots of totalitarian regime. So the government outlaws solidarity movement, but that did not stop the people. Many people are arrested, some murdered, including clergy were murdered. There is this famous story of Popiełuszko. He was tortured for 3 days. Every bone broken. Like what they did to this man, I don't want to even imagine. Because they hate God and they hate anyone that gives people hope. Hope is a commodity that they cannot allow people to hear. That's why they hate me so much, because my messages are not just this is bad, because I always take them through the history, but then I'll tell them
we can win.
The remedy. It's very easy. Actually, it's a shockingly easy how to beat those people up. People don't realize that we have the power, and that's what the Polish people did. Millions took it to the streets with a very simple message. It was not a complicated message. We are nobody's slaves. Get out of our lives. We just want to live our lives in peace. And they did it en masses. So the government got scared. They crushed the people brutally. When they were crushing them brutally, more people were rising up because there was the sympathy with the martyrs during that time. And it took, the problem that we're facing, Tommy, is that it takes a while to break things. It will take a while to fix things, to rebuild. I used to be a builder in my, before I became a clergy. I was a builder, and I'm telling you, it's easy to demolish, it's easy to destroy. It's very difficult to rebuild. It takes time, it takes resources, it takes, thinking. And it will take a while. It took Polish people 9 years, but as you remember, Lech Wałęsa, 1989, the Berlin Wall goes down, the Iron Curtain gets broken, Soviet Union collapses, and Poland becomes the freest country on earth at that time. There was this period between, 1980s and 2000 some, before this big lie, where Poland was absolutely doing amazing. It was fast growth, capitalism, people were really doing great. So those villains we're dealing with, they know history and they understand what they cannot allow to happen. In order for them to win, they have to destroy people coming together. Town hall meetings. Tommy coming to speak to Calgary, that's unacceptable. We have to send a message to scare other Tommies from coming. That's what they're doing. And that's why it's up to us to rise up and say, yeah, they've arrested me 16 times. I faced over 120 court cases and over 360 citations, and here I am laughing in their face. I mean, come and get me, right? I'm not hiding. I did not come here with security and, probably listening to our conversation. So what? Let them learn some good things. Maybe some of them will be saved. We have spies in our church. I'm being monitored all the time. I'm in court still.
So when did you come? When did you come to Canada then? Oh, Poland gets free. When did you arrive in Canada and why?
So my father escaped in 1989 to Greece. And then he called the family and says, that's it, I'm done with Poland. He didn't want to deal with communism at that time. That was still before the freedom. He comes to Greece and he calls us to come. So we joined him the next year, the whole family, and we started to rebuild our lives. And that's where I started to work for rich people building houses. So that's what I did for a living, land development and houses. And then Canadian Embassy called us, and I will never forget this meeting in Canadian Embassy. We spent 5 years in Greece, and the officer said, because they knew we had money, we had, things and cars and all of that stuff, they said, sell everything you have, come to Canada. Canada is the freest country on earth. In Canada, no one will ever persecute you for your faith. It's like, now it's so ironic that we've heard those words. We decided, yeah, that's the land we want to live in, and where we want to have children, build a house, plant a tree, buy a dog, just, hey, that's the land I want to die in, this American dream where a man can work hard, achieve something beautiful, and leave a legacy, a blessing for the next generations. So we arrived here in 1995, and at first I was not involved at all. I went back to business, started building houses for rich people again, and I knew there's something definitely wrong with this country, but I did not really care at that time. I knew it's very corrupted, which is a different corruption than I experienced in Poland. It's a different corruption than I experienced in Greece. This corruption is with white gloves. It's hidden. You don't see it. It's not in your face, but it's there. You bring bribes just like you did in Poland. You do the same thing. I was bribing police officers. I was bribing politicians. Here, Greece, Poland,
okay.
You name it. The system is the same. And as a businessman, you just do what you need to do to make a living, right? Of course, now they hate me because I went to the other side. I'm exposing them. I can tell you how much a mayor took for which project because I was there, I know. They cannot stomach me because I used to be them. I used to be part of them. I was never a bad man. I never hurt people. I've never stolen from people. But I was part of the system. I was part of the club, elite club. I used to own a magazine, a media. I was in the media. I could eat in any best restaurant I wanted, open doors. I had interviews.
Was this before you found God?
Yeah, before I got serious.
Before you found God.
Yeah.
So you've come to Canada, you're succeeding. Like most people, your passion is probably making money and succeeding.
That's right.
And whatever you have to do to make that money and succeed, people do.
That's right.
And you become part of the club that's in that process. So when do you find God then? When does that change?
Well, I met my wife in Greece. She was a born-again Christian. An amazing, fascinating woman that I could not get out of my head, if you know what I mean.
Greek?
No, she was Polish.
Oh,
She's Polish. Okay. And she fascinated me because she has seen the world totally through different glasses. So I was telling her the world is evil. People are like wolves. They're like sharks in the middle of the sea. When they smell your blood, they will just kill you. So I saw people as bad because I've seen so much corruption, so much evil. Police beating people, abuse of power. So my worldview was humans are awful. Stay away from them. They're awful people. If you need to do business to make money, do business and just withdraw yourself. But she says, no, they're beautiful. I will never forget the moments with her when we went to, to see friends or whatever, and she would always look at another man and she would always find something good. I would always find something bad. She would always find something good in that person. I said, look what, this guy is, but look how wonderfully he talks to his wife. And, she always looked through those positive. And she was telling me about this God. And I said, listen, I grew up under Catholicism. I've seen corruption, the priests, girls, poker game, wasting kids. it's worse than outside of the church. I don't want to have anything to do with this God. If those are his representatives, I don't want to have anything to do with that kind of a God. Of course, I did not read the Bible. I thought that because they say they represent God, that must be about God. But she says, read the Bible. God hates the same thing you hate. He hates this hypocrisy. He doesn't stand for it. And so finally I did. It was a process. It took 7 years.
What year was this?
It was...
When did it start?
And I started in 92,
Yeah.
and then it ended 7 years later. It took 7 years. I'm a very stubborn man. I am more stubborn than all the donkeys combined together. I'm telling you.
I've noticed. I've seen.
So, 99, I finally took the knee to God, and I said, God, change my life. I was a drunkard. I was a very heavy drunkard every day. And
What,
weekends,
drinking alcohol?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Beer during the week and heavy liquor, whiskey weekends, to a point that I didn't know what I did. Many times it was driving, of course, sport cars and stuff like this, 240, 50 on the highway, like bad things. We used to do those speeding, who's faster and races and stuff like this on the streets. It was horrible. And most of the time I was so drunk I didn't know how I got home. And many times I would be awakened holding toilet, puking all night long. And I felt horrible. I did not know why I am behaving this way. And she was fighting for my life, but it was a process. And one day I took a beer, I didn't open it, and I put it on the table. That was 1999. That's where everything changed for me. And I didn't open, and I look at this beer for 3 days. And my wife on the second day came to me and says, should I call a doctor? Because you look like you lost your mind. And I said to her, I'll never forget that. I said, I don't understand what happened to a man like me. I was supposed to do great things in life, but I'm a loser. I had money, but I was a loser. And I said to her, I am a slave to a bottle. How that happened? I look at her and I was like, how did that happen? That man like me becomes a slave to a bottle. I don't want to be a slave to no one and nothing. I want to be free. So I never opened it. That was 1999. And I'm telling you, I have become free. And 2000, we reconciled with my wife, and I stopped doing even business the way I was doing. Like, it was completely clean, nice. If I had to bribe someone, I would not do the job.
Spiritually clean.
Completely. I fixed my entire life, got reconciled with my wife, 100%. She got pregnant. And then our first son, Nathaniel, was born, and that shook me big time because he was born dead with a heart on opposite side, smashed lungs. A huge, huge story. They did a documentary on this. Nathaniel in Hebrew means a gift from God, and our first born son was born the same day I was born. And that shook me big time because at that time I didn't care about money. I wanted to fix my life completely. I stopped drinking 2000. So 6 months after I stopped drinking, our son was born with such a huge mess. And what happened was he had a hole in his muscle, and through that hole, bowels went up and smashed his whole upper chest. And the doctor said he's not going to survive. There's no way he can live. So they asked us to unplug him. But you see, that's where faith of my wife comes in. She says, no way, we'll fight to the death. If God takes this kid, it will be his choice, not the doctor's. And she started to pray. I've never seen more dedicated, focused person in my life. Every day she called every friend. There was prayer. She read the Bible to this little boy. He was on the machinery, so huge, a little tiny baby. It was unbelievable. Anyway, it takes me a couple hours to tell the story. Fast forward, God healed the kid against every expert in the land. They said, they took me to the room with my wife, X-ray room. At that time, there were X-ray rooms, and 24 years ago. And they said, we cannot explain what happened. It looks like your God heard your prayers. We've called your son a star baby because this is a baby that should not be alive but is living. It should not be breathing, but it's breathing. It's like a baby that came from the stars. So we called your son a star baby. What happened was, within few hours, a heart went to its natural place, and the lung, I have a surgeon report, the lung was not there at all when they opened him up. Few hours after our prayer with me and my wife, the heart moved to its natural place and the lung appeared, and they could not explain it. The machinery was fighting with the body of our son, so they removed the pipe just for a split of a second, and they said,
He breathed.
he's breathing. Like, this is a medical impossibility. So that I think that moment changed my entire life. I'll tell you what happened at that moment. I realized that there are certain things that are more important than money. That there are certain things that are more important than power, than political friends, and this whole, sport cars and Hollywood style and palaces and swimming pools and all this garbage. Family, God, faith, freedom, those are the things worth fighting for, and life is not worth living without them. God and family is the most important thing. So that changed my entire perspective. I still went to business, I still did business, and it was quite successful. I had an office in Bankers Hall. Bankers Hall is the most prestigious place in the city of Calgary. I owned a number of corporations and development company, building company, media, all kinds of different things I was doing. And then 2005, and part-time I was working with the homeless people. In 2005, I walked out of the business. Literally, I packed my stuff from the office. I walked out, never went back. I left millions of dollars. I lost millions of dollars, lost my houses and everything else. I walked out of the business, never went back, and I dedicated my entire life to homelessness, to take them off the streets. Because you see, I was pretty good at what I was doing. I was pretty good when I was doing this part-time. And I thought to myself, what if I just dedicate my entire life saving those people? I'll probably save lots of people instead of doing it part-time. So that's what I did. And within 3 months, I took 600 people off the streets. Within 3 months. And then guess what happened?
Wow.
Government happened.
Well, in 2005. What happened?
2005, I had my first police officer.
What for?
Well, I was doing this already for years.
So whilst you're having your successful business, on the side of doing your successful business and successful life, you start helping homeless people how? With soup kitchens?
Yeah, soup kitchens, going to the streets, taking them off, getting them apartments, hiring them into my company. My first homeless person that I took off the streets, I hired him, I rented him a place to live. I even sent him to Europe. He has never seen his grandchildren ever. He was an alcoholic all his life. And then help them to get out. You got to remember, at that time I stopped drinking, so I had a powerful story of you don't need that stuff.
Of recovery. Do you think that was part of your recovery? Do you think helping these people was part of helping yourself?
Maybe. You can look at it that way.
Because I know people who go into recovery, to maintain recovery, they have to help, or they say.
Yeah, I quit cold turkey. So I didn't go through withdrawal. I didn't have to. I prayed and God completely healed me. And right now I have friends that drink alcohol. It means nothing to me. It was just, I don't have any, I'm scared. I'm around people that are drinking. Yeah. Nothing, zero. I don't even have thoughts about this. But since 1999, I started to help people. I would take them to dinners, I would organize dinners in the church, I would pay for everything, and just help in that kind of a way. Every week we would go to the streets, we would buy 100 pizzas and just give it to the people and cheer them up. I would bring a pickup truck, put speakers on top, play some Christian songs, give a message of hope, tell them, hey, I was once with you and now I'm free and you can be free as well. Just positive messages. And in 2005, I started to do this full time. And as long as we were a small ministry, no one really cared.
So you had a church at this time, you're running your own church?
We had our own church. Cool. I was a pastor already, part-time until 2005. 2005, I became a full-time clergy.
Okay.
And so when we were a small mission, if you will, a small, soup kitchen, police was there downtown, but they would say hi. It was super friendly, no issues with bylaw services. No one really cared until we became very, very successful. Of course, I was very naive at that time. I didn't understand. So when 2005 comes, I have 250 volunteers at this moment, 7 locations. We're really saving lives. We're doing impact in the city of Calgary, and I started to do ministries in other countries and other cities as well. Started about 40 ministries like this. And 2005, police shows up at our soup kitchen in hell. It was in hell. It was in a ghetto, American ghetto, where on our right was 50 prostitutes with pimps, and on our left were 50 drug dealers. People were shooting each other, knives, mortars, rapes.
Which city is this?
Calgary.
In Calgary, okay.
Under the bridges in downtown. It was horrible. And I was told that police refuses to come here because they're afraid. So I said, well, that's perfect. That's where I'm going to, build our church, right in the middle of hell. Because the darkest the place, the light shines brighter. I mean, it's, so that's what we did. I brought 4 big speakers, huge giant cross, and barbecues. And when you bring food, people start to show up, huge lineups, hundreds of people. And we gave them a message, very simple message, a repetition of the same message. You don't have to die a slave. You don't have to die a prostitute. You don't have to die a drug dealer. You don't have to die an alcoholic. You don't have to die a hateful, bitter, unforgiving person. You can actually, God can turn your life around. He did it for me. He did it for him. He did it for another guy, for this lady. And that was the simplicity of our mission. And we end up in the papers, all over the papers. Businessman leaves business and helps poor, and street church, because that's the ministry it's called. Street church grows on the streets, and they covered very positively, believe it or not. Now it's a shocker, right? Because they hate me. But at that time I was a hero, literally, by the media, but not by the politicians. So the politicians got involved. The mayor, Dave Bronconia, was the mayor at that time. He got involved, and I was labeled as this person that just disturbs the neighborhoods.
Why?
Because of the speakers, because of noise, because of congregating hundreds of homeless. But again,
and you were doing it all on the street.
I was doing it on the streets, in the
street
places. Preacher. That's right, in the places that no other people would even come.
Okay.
And the police with the bylaw services showed up, and they said, well, there is actually a law. Here is a shocker. Because I read the Constitution, and I read the Charter of Rights and Freedoms in Canada, which is part of the Constitution that starts with the preamble. And the preamble states, whereas Canada acknowledges the supremacy of God and the rule of law. And it outlines all different things that are fundamentally guarantees, including food. And they said to me that there is actually a law that was passed in the municipalities that giving free goods and services is illegal. Giving free goods, so your sandwich, is illegal. You're breaking the law. And then you're praying for people. So I prayed for people in public parks. Well, that's against the law as well, because you're giving you free services. You're a pastor, therefore you're giving your services for free, contrary to the law. It's like I could not believe it. Then they said to me, you also are distributing Bibles, right? Yeah, it's a church, that's what we do. Well, that's also illegal because there is a law. Giving away printed material is prohibited by law. So gospel tracts, Bibles, that's 2005. So I had a choice. You know why I do what I do, and I'm moved, I'm unshakable, just keep plowing? Because having faith, being able to resist tyranny, it doesn't start right away. It's a graduate process. If you didn't stand for something good 10, 20, 15 years ago, you would never be able to stand for what happened 4 years ago. Never. It's like...
It's good to hear this, because we're going to get on to it. It gives us an understanding of why you was the man that stood.
So...
Well, why do you think they done that in 2005? Why do you think they wanted to prevent you feeding the homeless, giving the message of the gospel, and turning people's lives around? Why would the mayor and the local council not want that?
Because they hate competition. There are a number of things. I told you a few minutes ago that I was very naive. I thought that the shelters and the government helps the poor, right? The billions of dollars. You know how much money is designated to fight homelessness in the province of Alberta every single year? $230 million.
So they maintain them.
So, you know, when I was imprisoned, twice a day, every inmate in the country gets free drugs. Fentanyl, cocaine. Every single day, twice a day, we were offered the most crazy, heaviest, addictive drugs.
People going to prison. I've been through the prison system in the UK. People come in clean, and then they leave on prescription drugs.
Yeah, well, that's the purpose. Why? Because it's a revolving door. It guarantees you clients. It's a business.
This will be hard for people to understand. I've seen it.
Yeah, so homelessness is the same thing. Again, you got to remember, Tommy, I didn't know that stuff.
No, so
now
you're
I know.
naive to it, yeah.
I was very naive. I thought the government is good. I mean, I knew they were crooks, but for the personal reasons. But I would not even imagine how evil those people are. They're monsters. They're not humans. They're monsters. And
so they come to you in 2005 and they try to stop you doing what you're doing by quoting laws. What's your reaction to that?
So I had two choices. You're familiar with the man Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Yes.
So Arnold Schwarzenegger was born with all the muscle and he became the superstar, right? Like he came out of the mother's womb and he was fit like this. And no, it took him his whole life. Yeah. He was building. Actually, if you look at his story, he was a normal boy, no muscle, nothing. He was quite a fragile young boy. But he had a dream and he started working things out. With faith, with doing good, it is the same way. First, you got to do the first step. And 2005 was that my first step. I had a decision to make. Either I will bow before their wishes, because they told me, shut your shop. That's how they called the church. Or we will ticket you. And I'm thinking, okay, ticket. I'll fight them. I decided to fight them.
So when you took all your tickets, they first started in 2005?
2005.
Okay, I thought all your tickets were to do with COVID. Go on, carry on.
2005. And I called the lawyers. And I called the church. I was still part of a big denomination. All of them said to me, you can't win. All of them. The lawyers, the church hierarchy, denomination, and they had millions, tens of millions of dollars. And they said, no, you cannot win with the government, so quit. But they're telling me to stop saving lives. How can I do this as a Christian? Those people rely on me. I'm the only source of their food. I feed those people every single week. If I stop feeding them, they will die, and it's on me, not on government, because I'm scared. And they said, well, you can't win. So I'll never forget this moment, because it's a moment that leads you to a bigger moment, and the bigger moment leads you to today, why I do what I do. Well, first of all, I love God, and second, I love the people, but also it was a process that made me the man I am today. And I called the media. And remember, at that time, they liked me. So they showed up, all the media. I became international story in 2005. Russians were writing about this.
Okay.
It was all over the world. Koreans were writing about this story, that this ex-businessman is being hunted down for feeding the poor, for doing good in Canada, out of all the nations. And I did a big splash. I hit it hard as I could. And so I'll never stop. They'll have to shoot me dead, but I'll keep feeding the poor. Period. And I'll keep preaching the gospel.
Where did you get the money to feed the poor?
Oh, well,
at
that time I was still, I was in a business. I just left business. So
You're still using your own money?
I used everything I had.
You're using your own money?
I was using my own money. And then when people started to learn what I do, I mean, right now, it's a machinery, truckload every day. Every day we're feeding people in the city of Calgary.
Because businessmen support you?
Business people, grocery stores,
Oh, wow.
organizations, private people bring stuff. It's a huge endeavor right now that feeds thousands of people. But at that time, I was using my own funds, and I did a press conference, and I said, "I'll fight them until Jesus comes back," and so that enraged them, and they took me to court. And you know who took me to court? Mayor, the politicians, and shelters. And that
The other
puzzled me.
shelters?
The other shelters.
Who are the other shelters controlled by?
Drop-in center and master seat.
Who are they controlled by? Government?
Government,
Council.
because you got to remember how you have to keep it in mind how the system works. $230 million every year designated to fight homelessness. Where is the money? If they are forming a lineup in our soup kitchen outdoors, why they're not being fed indoors? Why they're coming to me? Because everything is stolen from them. Literally, everything is they're being raped.
Homelessness is one big corrupt business as
It's
well.
a huge cow. It's a milk cow.
For every local council.
So here is how the system works. For every homeless, there is an allocated amount of money being given by the government. More heads, it's like cattle. More cattle, more money. Less cattle, less money. And here comes Artur Pawlowski with volunteers. I don't take any money from the government. I'm doing this for free, and I'm very successful. So I took 600 people off the streets.
That's 600 people's less money for the council.
Not only that, there is
Less
600 people less for drugs.
For
Drugs is a
relying on the system.
multi-billion dollar business. So every homeless person, on average, uses $100 to $1,000 a day worth of drugs. That's why they are drug pushers as well. They become addicts, and then they become drug dealers because they need to support their addiction. Now multiply this by 600. It gives you millions of dollars every single month that someone somewhere was losing because of my activity. So they activated the politicians. Politicians came cracking. Politicians activated the police. Bylaw services, they came to scare me. But here is the problem. I am a Polish immigrant. And I used to be a martial art expert, of course, when I was young. A black belt, and I used to train police officers, martial art. I used to be a professional boxer when I was young, okay? I wouldn't fight right now unless I'll have to. So I'm a fighter in heart, in spirit, in mind. So I said, I'll fight you. I have no means and I have no political friends anymore, but I'll fight you. And I did the press conference and unleashed absolute craziness. So I got tickets after citation after citation after citation. So now we're in court, but I'm still doing what I'm being told I cannot do. So the arrests came. You know, I became the first Canadian in the history of this country to be arrested for publicly reading Bible in a park without amplification. You know that?
No,
2006.
2006 you was arrested for preaching the gospel.
For reading the Bible. Not
Bible.
even preaching, just reading it to 6 of our parishioners in a public park, Tompkins Park. So 7 police officers came. I was arrested. The officers told me, we don't want you to read the Bible here. And it's a public park. I said, why not? Well, because we want you to go to another park. I said, well, if you want to go to another park, you go to another park. I like this park. I'm staying here. They didn't like that. so they said, if you don't go, then you will be arrested. I said, fine, that's okay.
And this is going on in 2006.
2006. So I got arrested. And you can still watch the video. It's on YouTube of my arrest. The officer forced me to walk backwards. He pushed me backwards, so I'm walking backwards. I didn't know why. Later in the court proceedings, I learned that that's what you do to the most dangerous terrorists. You either bend them or you force them to walk backwards. So that was my introduction to the justice system. And I faced a year of imprisonment for reading the Bible in Canada. I won, and that
you would have faced. So they took you through the courts where the possible outcome was a year imprisonment.
yeah,
You won
7 criminal charges.
7 criminal charges, and you won the case.
I won the case, and they went viral around the world. 2006, it was crazy.
And they're not going to be happy about that.
No. So now I have powerful enemies. Not only they couldn't shut me up, now I have become kind of a celebrity in a circus, in certain circus, churches and other places. And also, I'm still fighting them in a court for feeding the poor, and I'm not stopping. So they unleashed everything at their disposal. Over 100 court cases, at that time, 320 citations, tickets, and I have been charged with everything you can imagine. I was charged with distribution of printed material. I was charged with giving free goods and services, stunting. They said when I feed the poor, I am distracting motor vehicles. I was charged with disturbing peace. I was charged with having illegal signage. Illegal signage was Jesus loves you. That was the illegal sign. I said, why? Well, it's offensive now. In Canada, the name of Jesus is offensive. And we are considering this as, disturbing peace and having an offensive signage. I was charged with placing material on the ground. I didn't even know there are laws like this. There are made up stuff.
But there's law, when you say there's law, this is how they're implemented. Because would those laws be implemented now against Muslims giving out Qurans?
No. So at the same time,
So it's
you have
politicization
every
from the-
other community. So here's what I said to them, and during the trials as well. I said, I don't mind laws. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I emigrated to this country because of law. I just was sick and tired of corruption. I didn't want to live in a country that's corrupted, where a cop can come and force you to pay him. So I came to Canada because I believe this is a country of law and order.
And freedom.
So I am all for law, but I am for equal application of that law. So if you're telling me I cannot do this, but you're allowing others to do the same thing, I'm going to oppose you. I'll fight you. Because law should be equally applied to everyone, or there is no law. It's lawlessness. Now you're telling me that those people are better than me. They're elites that can do this and I cannot because I'm a peasant, I'm a slave. That's unacceptable in any democratic society. So I reasoned with them, but they had an agenda and I had a target already. 2005 to 2015, 10 years, I faced over 100 court cases. I was in a criminal court, I was in a QB, Queen's Bench, I was in provincial, I was even in the courts of appeal, I faced attorney general, I faced multiple mayors, multiple premiers, I faced multiple councillors. Sometimes I fought 7 lawyers in a trial. My longest trial, 3 weeks for feeding the poor. I have faced so many trials and meetings, pre-trial conferences and appearances in the court, that I spend literally more time in court than in my home or in the church as a pastor. And they drained me completely from my resources. Millions of dollars, my properties I had to sell, and they ruined me financially to a point that the city of Calgary sent me a letter that they're going to foreclosure my home because I could not afford to pay taxes. So that's what they do. The process is the punishment. They take you to the ringer, hoping that you quit. But you see, again, I am a Polish immigrant. And I don't think there are more stubborn people on earth than the Polish immigrants that live through this hell. And I have vowed that I will fight them until Jesus comes back. So 2015, I win.
How?
Huge story. Court of Appeal. The judges sided with me. They said I have right to feed the poor, and
So
I have
you win all the historic cases. You've won against all of them.
100 cases.
Okay, so you've lost.
No. I pretty much won all of them.
Okay.
Except few.
Okay.
And those few that I lost in a lower court, I won in the Court of Appeal.
Explain to people though who are watching this, because what's it like spending that much time in court? What's the drain like? What's it? Rather than concentrating on feeding the homeless and saving lives, what are you concentrating on?
Surviving. That's what it is. It's just you're constantly thinking, because the arrest is with you everywhere you go. I was hunted down, literally hunted down. I had officers following me. I had undercover following me. I had reporters following me. I was constantly on edge never knowing. So imagine this, Tommy. You have a 5-year-old kid, the one that survived 5 years later, and he looks through the window. I go to feed the poor. I'm not going to sell drugs or, buy guns and sell them, or, do a robbery or steal something. I go to feed the poor, to save lives. And he turns to my wife, to his mom, and says, will Daddy be arrested again? You live with this constantly.
And your family.
And the family. You never know if you're going out, if you're coming. You got to remember also, I was dealing with gangsters. I was dealing with drug traffickers. They put price on my house multiple times. I was physically attacked. Guns, pistols, knives.
Who was physically attacking you and why?
So when the message of freedom, the message of Christianity is a message of freedom. So when a man like me comes, and not just me, because I had others with me.
And the drug dealers aren't happy because you're taking people away from the drugs.
That's right. So they put a price on my head.
The drug dealers want those people hooked on the drugs. You're getting them off the drugs. They're not happy. They're making money off those.
I'm interfering with the business. So I'm not only interfering with the government's business, I'm also interfering with bad people's business. So I'm interfering with prostitution, because of course my message is very clear. Stop doing what you're doing, because you will die. They die of AIDS, or you will die, they will use you and will throw you like a filthy rag. Stop using alcohol, because when you're drunk, you do stupid things. Don't use drugs, because then you completely lose control. And we were very successful. So they put a price on my head. And I'll never forget this one time. So I'm under the bridge. About 7 of them come, knives out already. But they told me that I'm going to be assassinated. And so they come and do what they wanted to do. And they move, and I'm thinking, oh my God, how I'm going to get out of this mess? I mean, it's a serious situation, 7 people with weapons. And suddenly police shows up, and they block the entire street. They bring German shepherds. They command them to bark, so it's like huge noise. Police everywhere. And I'm right there with the barbecue feeding the poor, and I was on the back of my pickup truck preaching to the people. Police comes and they say, if you don't stop feeding the people, you're going to be arrested. And I said, I cannot do that. Look, there is a huge lineup of people that are hungry. And you're telling me I cannot, that's illegal, you cannot do this, it's against the law. And I said, well, then you'll have to arrest me, because I'm not stopping. So I was arrested. That's what saved me, actually. In a weird way, I was arrested in front of those gangsters in a very spectacular way. I was arrested, my brother David was arrested because he was filming the police. He didn't do anything, he was just filming there. And ex-drug dealer that used to be part of the gang, I got him off the streets, and he stood between me and the police and said, you're not arresting my pastor unless you go through me. So they went through him very quickly, slammed him on a hoodie of the police car, and we got arrested, taken to police, criminally charged. And
this is unthinkable.
A couple hours later, we were released on bond, and Sunday the gangsters came. So that was Friday. We were arrested on Friday. Sunday the gang came, and the leader of the gang came, and I said, oh my God, he's going to kill me now. And he comes to me and gives me a bear hug. And it's like, what's going on here? And he says, we watched what the cops did to you. If they hate you so much, you must be a good guy. I could not believe it.
You got their respect.
I got their respect. Like, I could not believe it, that actually what they did, this evil that was done to us, actually saved my life. So fast forward, the officer in charge of this sting operation became my friend. The high up cop.
Become your friend.
Because he was coming to our church for 8 months to listen to me. So for 8 months, undercover, he comes to the church to listen to me preach.
Working. So he's there as a police officer.
He's there.
They send him as an undercover police officer to infiltrate your church to find something against you.
And hate or whatever. And 8 months later, he comes to me and he says, if I knew who you really are, how amazing you are, I'll never ever arrest you. And there's more to the story. He became our undercover cop within the police, and he was telling us everything for years what the cops were planning against me. Everything that, because he was so high up, he had access to the meetings and the memos and everything. He would be sending them to our lawyers and or tell me, and we would go to the lawyers. And I survived for years thanks to his intel.
But you're not a gangster, you're not a drug lord, you're a pastor feeding vulnerable people and trying to save vulnerable people.
Yeah, but I'm interfering, now I
With
know
the
this,
business,
of course
yeah.
at that time I didn't. I'm interfering with hundreds of millions of dollars business. This is just a business that the government allocates $230 million every year to fight homelessness. Now add drug trafficking business, add that to this whole thing. We're talking about lots of money
business.
that suddenly those people got scared. So fast forward, I win a spectacular
2015.
case. It was all over the news. I'll never forget the reporters, because at that time they were working for the government and they were spinning. I'm the troublemaker, I'm the lawbreaker, I'm the bad guy. I was the hero, now I'm a zero because I dared to oppose them. I'm this troublemaker. And I will never forget the face of the reporters when the judge scolded the government, set me free with a huge total victory. Their faces turned white, like literally white. Everyone expected I'm going to lose. There's no way I can win, but I won. So from 2015 to 2020, they leave me be. And then 2020 comes, and they are the same people there.
Tell me what happens in 2020, because I had no idea of this history. I saw you, I had no idea of the history before this. So tell me what happens. Tell people what happens in 2020.
So 2020 shows up, and of course I'm a happy camper. The government left me alone. I got all my permits. The
You
police,
carried on feeding homeless all this time.
All this time, and actually since
won awards for it.
2015, I won all kinds of awards.
You won awards for recognition around the world, I believe.
Around the world,
Yeah?
from Israel, from political places,
Yeah.
from Caribbean, United States, Poland. I was invited to meet cool people, presidential palaces, you name it. I started orphanages in Kenya, churches. I started all kinds of medical clinics. I'm working now everywhere because you see the money that was designated to hire lawyers and fight was freed. I was able to concentrate on the mission, which is giving people hope and saving as many lives as possible. And so I was able to do that. I started about 40 ministries. I traveled around the world, and I did my best to inspire people to help others, because that's what the whole thing is all about. You've got a sandwich, share it with a hungry person. It's not that difficult. You don't have to have a church. You don't have to have a facility. Just be a human. And if you see a little need, just address it. And if you can do it on a bigger scale, then do it on a bigger scale. But it starts with one sandwich. With one sandwich with a hurting person. And just tell him, you know what? Your tomorrow will be better than today. That's the message. Your yesterday was horrible. Your today is unbearable. But you know what? Tomorrow can be good. It's up to you. And I can help you if you want it. It's because in the end of the day, it's their choice. If they want to stay in hell, that's up to them. No one is forcing them. They can come to our lineups. They don't have to. It's open. Anyone can come in. Anyone can go. I never forced anyone to do anything. You're welcome to come, grab your food and go. But they stay because they want to hear the message. They want to hear the music. They want to see this positivity. They want to be touched by the messages of life. Because that's Christianity is a message of life. God was dead, He's alive, and He can give you that life as well. He can set you free. So 2020 shows up. The 5 years was amazing because I was able to do a lot of cool stuff. I was able to 100% focus on saving lives, and I saved lots of people in different continents, and different cities, different countries. And then 2020 shows up. I knew there's something going on. I've heard there's some kind of a virus going on, but you know, when you work with the homeless people, when you work with prostitutes, with drug addicts, with drug dealers, most of them have diseases. Most of them are messed up and they have things. So first, you're conscious. After 25 years, you don't even think about it anymore. You just do your job, like a soldier, like a nurse, like a doctor. Not those nurses and doctors that we've seen in the past 4 years, but before that. Yeah. You know, they used to be the good people. So 2020 shows up, and I got this letter from the mayor. I have to stop feeding the poor, and I already explained why I didn't, because I sent a reply to them, and I said, you people do not make any sense. I am working with the homeless people my all adult life right now. And I'm telling you, if you don't feed them, and if I will not feed them, they're going to hurt other people. Because it's not because they're bad.
Because they need food.
Because they have to get the necessities of life. How are you going to provide them? Food, if you're going to shut down shelters and soup kitchens. No reply. So I kept feeding them. And guess what happened? I became the first Canadian to get a COVID ticket. Because you see, they saw me doing this. And they said, now we can destroy him. We couldn't succeed in the past 15 years. This is an opportunity. And 12 officers showed up. Winter, minus 25 or minus 30, very cold.
At your soup kitchen? They showed up at your soup kitchen?
They came, and Health Inspector, Bylaw Services, Calgary Police. Big force. And they announced that I have to stop doing what I'm doing, and if I don't, I'll be arrested, and I'll get millions of dollars worth of tickets. And here's the first one.
How much was the first one?
$1,200.
$1,200. So they turned up. Here's a fine because you're not supposed to be having this.
Right.
Gathering. They call it a gathering.
Yes. And I said, okay, fine, I'll fight you. I fought you before, I'll fight you again. And well, you will be arrested. Okay. Not the first time and not the last time, I'm sure of it. That's what I said. So they don't know how to deal with that kind of an attitude because most people are scared. But here is a Polish guy and has been arrested so many times. Have you ever met a guy with more tickets than I? I've never met a man with 360 citations, 120 court cases. I'm an expert in law right now. I probably would pass a bar myself after spending years in court.
For nothing though.
For feeding the poor.
For feeding the poor.
And giving
for
people
helping.
Message of hope.
Message of love.
So I kept feeding the people. Didn't stop. So from the beginning of 2020 to December of 2020, I had police officers at every church service. Intimidation, harassment, tickets,
so
threats of arrest.
Even at indoor church services, because this is
outdoor.
Outdoor.
So I pastor 2 churches.
Yep.
I pastor one that is called Street Church, streetchurch.ca. If people are interested, you can see it. What we do.
I want to go to
people. We feed people, and then I also pastor a church in a building. That's the Get Out video. The steps.
This is the one that went worldwide. Yeah.
Yeah. From 2020 to December of 2020. They were only harassing me every single week, multiple times a week, on the streets, street church. Intimidation, harassment, threats, threats of tickets, many I got, and then arrests. But I stood my ground, kept feeding people. The police were showing up, sometimes 8, sometimes 20, 30 police. We were surrounded by cops. Sometimes more police than the people we were helping because they got scared. And then December of 2020 showed up, and I don't think in your country was as crazy as here, but the Canadian government, all levels, municipal, provincial, and federal, came on television, and we just had Halloween. And the same people said, kids, have fun, be safe, enjoy your life, right? Few weeks later, we have Christmas. And all of those people, politicians, went on television and they said, we're canceling Christmas. You're not allowed to have Christmas, no dinners. You cannot even have your brother in your home for coffee. No family coming together. We're canceling Christmas. So I went on television too. And I invited people to the biggest Christmas celebration in the country. And I said, AAA steaks, gifts, and we're going to have just great time. And thousands.
Where?
Calgary, December.
Okay.
Christmas celebration.
Yep.
And a week before that, we had a family dinner. So I took a picture. I invited my whole family and friends. Took a picture of huge table and I sent it to them and I said, come and get me. Because the chief of police said that They're going to send police officers to monitor driveways. If they will see extra cars, then they will break the doors and arrest people that had, coffee with their family. It was completely cancelled. Also, this crazy, insane government declared that Holy Communion is also outlawed. You're not allowed to break bread. Holy Communion, outlawed.
Church on Sundays.
Also, they said you're not allowed to sing. Singing was outlawed in an entire nation. In Canada, you were not allowed by law to sing. So what I did, that's how I fight. I had Lord's Supper every single time we met, and it was live, it was a live streaming.
You live streamed your church events?
Everything we live stream.
Okay.
And we had a Holy Communion every single time. And also I told the
if every church done this, they would have buckled straight away. If everyone done what you're doing.
Oh, that would be over.
It would have been over. If everyone just stood up.
It would be over within a week.
Within a week, yeah. This is the message.
Within a week. And I was not hiding. I was live streaming. I was sending. I was talking. I was telling them, I'm not bowing. You want to come and get me, but I'm not bowing. I want you to know I'm not going to play this Muppet show. It's a Muppet show. You're bloody liars. And I'm not going to buy it. You're 6 feet apart is a big fat lie. I mean, I know biology. I spent
Did you organise a not wear the mask event, did you?
I never wore that stupid
Did you organise an event where you told people not to?
Of course.
Yeah?
Of course. I said, you see, Tommy, I have children. I have 3 children. And there was situations.
The first one was Nathaniel.
Then Gabriel, second son, and I have a daughter, Maya.
2 boys and girls.
And having children, here's what I learned. I've learned that sometimes the most horrible thing happens. They do unthinkable. They poop. And
They what? Poop?
they poop. It's an attack. It's a biological attack. I'm telling you, I was scared to death when they did it. And most of the time my wife was taking care of this horrible situation. But sometimes they would go shopping, she would go somewhere, and so first I would call. And you notice right away there's a disaster in a land. So I'll call my wife, where are you, honey? And if she said, 20 minutes, half hour, I would turn to the kids like, we shall live. We'll survive this. If she said couple hours, I said, we're doomed. We're not going to survive this attack. I have to deal with you, right? And so, what happens? You have to change and you got to wash the kid and everything else. But of course, the Pampers is not stopping you from smelling this biological attack on your life. So I told the people, listen, you have to be brainless or have no brain whatsoever at all if you believe that this is going to stop you from getting this thing in or out. It's 1,000 times smaller than the bacteria. This thing cannot stop it.
Yeah, the mask, but they told us it couldn't stop it at
Right.
the start. So it can't stop it, then it can stop it.
So I went everywhere without that stupid thing. In our church, no one was wearing this. All our events no one was wearing it except Antifa and police and crazy people. But our Christians didn't. So what I did, I invited people to the biggest Christmas celebration in the land. Thousands of people showed up. Media showed up. And I broke my record. 120 police officers, 52 police cars, anti-terrorists, SWAT team, chief of police, and a special unit on bicycles. So they all came as well. And I was told that I did the unthinkable. You got to remember, during that time singing was prohibited, and I hired carolers, Christmas carolers, were singing loud through the speakers for a whole downtown to hear. And I end up with 15 COVID tickets for that single day. It took me 2 years to fight them, but I won. I won every single COVID ticket, every single one. So that enraged them because now they've unleashed everything they had at their disposal, including anti-terrorists, chief of police, tickets, intimidation, harassment, threats, following me, intimidating my family, my children, taking pictures of my wife, my children with the telescopic cameras. They've unleashed everything. So what they decided to do, they decided to destroy my church because that's where my backing comes from, right? That's where the resources are coming from. And they started to show up at our church building. because I don't charge a penny from the homeless. We show up, we don't ask for anything. There's no collection plate, there's nothing. We just do it, we feed them, we help them, and then we have a building. And in the building, you have collection plates, and you ask people to chip in to support you. And it's live streaming. And so they blocked the driveway to our church. That's the beginning of 2021. So they took a whole year harassing, intimidation, and trying to scare us. It didn't work, so they started to show up in our church building. They blocked the driveway, preventing the parishioners from coming to the church. So I went over there and I unleashed Artur Pawlowski on them. I was super hard, and I filmed it.
Is this the footage that went viral worldwide?
No.
Okay, cool.
No, it went viral, but not in millions. It was big, but not that big. And it took me about an hour to fend off those hyenas. Finally, they go. They come back a few weeks later, and they were taking pictures of everyone that comes in and goes out, children, women. So
let's have it right here. People are just coming to church on a Sunday here.
Yeah.
For their communion.
And
that's all this is about.
And I was, at that time, you got to also remember, we became very, very popular. We had thousands of people at our rallies. Super popular. I was everywhere. I was doing shows and telling people to stand against this. And I was reminding them about solidarity, how we did it in Poland. And I said, we can copy paste and do the same thing here, because we're dealing with the same psychopathic entities. And then April of 2021 shows up. And in the morning, I turn to my left and I see masked people. You see, you gotta remember, I was puzzled. I froze for a second, because in our church, no one wears a mask, no one. And even if someone would come visiting with a mask, within the second song, the mask would be gone, because no one wears a mask in our church. So they would take it off as well. And I see all of those people muzzled up like monkeys. And so I went to the pulpit. I had my phone at the pulpit, so I took it and I hit play and I recorded it. And that was April. It was a Passover celebration, Saturday. And because we have Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday church services indoor, and we have 3 times outdoor services as well. Plus we do festivals and marches and other things. Baptisms every week in a river as well. So I went to them, and during that time I was preparing a message from the story of Exodus, let my people go, the Moses story, the Red Sea, the plagues. And so that's what I had in my heart. I was just like, get out. That's what I said, just get out.
So this is the police invading your church?
The police,
this is
health inspectors.
April 2021?
Yes.
Police and health inspectors all masked up. They've come into your church building.
Bylaw services and some undercover people, which I do not know who they were. The health inspector was the top boss. She is a supervisor of all the Nazis. But people have to understand why I call them those names.
What did you call them? Tell the people what you said to them.
Yeah, I told them. I told them first, please get out. I was very nice, but firm. Please get out, and they would not move. So I was a little bit more aggressive, and I was walking towards them. Get out. It took me over 30 times to tell them get out, and eventually I told them that they are Nazis because they're acting just like Nazis, Gestapo of today, and I called them communists. Why? Because they are unleashed. They already unleashed the same tactics that I saw when I was growing up: fear, intimidation, propaganda. I'm telling you, I grew up under propaganda, but I have never seen a bigger propaganda than Canadian news right now. Because at least the communists were not pretending you don't exist. Those people right now pretend we don't exist. I just came from a huge conference in Victoria, and there was some opposition. They only covered the opposition and they ignored everybody else. It's only one side.
They're only giving one side to the public. Just like at COVID, they're only giving one medical advice, not the counter.
Because they're only interested in lie. So I told them to get out. Eventually they leave, and I told them, don't you dare ever come back without the warrant. Because you got to remember, they broke the law. They are the lawbreakers. Everything they did to us was against the law, against the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, against the Criminal Code of Canada, especially Section 176, which is 1 and 2, that says they're not allowed to do this. You know, you cannot harass, intimidate, or prevent a clergy while he's on his way to perform his duty, in the middle of performing his duty, or coming from. You can go to prison for 2 years if you do that. And they did all of this. They broke every law in the land. Criminal Code, Charter of Rights, Constitution, you name it. They broke it. But they were not happy. So what I did, it was just a few minutes. That was before I was ready to preach. And what I did, I uploaded it to some of my channels. And I tell you, Tommy, I did not even think about this video. I did my sermon. I was happy that they left and they didn't come back. I put my phone on and I was like...
By the end of your... This is what I saw. And I think people... Do you know what it is? You hit a moment when the public were waiting. I was waiting. Everyone was waiting and watching, thinking, how are they doing this? And I think your fire and how you've reacted to them probably was the feeling that everyone was waiting for.
Yeah, I asked a friend of mine, a member of parliament, why this video. I've done some amazing things, I think. You know, I've saved lots of lives and I've done big things like 26,000 people events and stuff like this. And why this? I mean, I was not super proud of me yelling at the coppers, you know, like that's not what I do. I don't want to do this. Actually, Tommy, many times I said to the authorities, please leave me alone and you will never hear about Artur Pawlowski. Because I don't care. I only care about saving lives. That's my mission. That's my life's mission. Leave me alone. You can think I'm crazy that I have wasted my life on the homeless, but that's what I want to do. I'll feed them and I'll give them messages of hope and you will never hear about me. No, they would not. They would not. So when...
They help your message go global.
The media started to contact me. I mean, it's like the biggest media outlets on earth started to bombard me to do interviews. So for the next month, outside of doing what I always do, feeding people, preaching in churches and stuff like this, I gave about 10 to 15 shows or interviews a day to the biggest outlets, millions of views. It turned out that weekend, this was the #1 video played on earth, over 1 billion views within the first weekend. It was the most popular video on earth at that time. Me, with my funny accent.
Oh mate, if you think you'd pissed them off from 2005 to 2015, you've really done it now.
You're actually absolutely right, because I called my friend again.
It's international humiliation.
And I said to him, so what do you think? And he says,
you're in trouble.
If I was them, I'll just leave you alone. I'll pretend you don't even live. Just forget about him.
They can't do that. Though.
But I don't think they're going to do that. But if they will arrest you, this will be their biggest mistake. So I had lawyers, of course. All this time I had lawyers on standby because I got tickets. And thanks to Ezra Levant from Rebel News.
Hey, Ezra just helped me out again. Go on, tell me what Ezra done.
Yeah, so remember the first ticket I got for feeding the poor at the soup kitchen? I published this, or I sent it to someone. I don't remember if I sent it to Ezra or not, but he got a hold of it. And he says, well, would you be willing to be part of raising funds for the legal fees for this experiment? At that time was an experiment of fighting those fines.
Fight the fines.
Fight the fines. So I was their first client.
Okay.
I was the first man.
They won 3,000.
Because I was the first Canadian to be charged with this.
Okay.
And Ezra says, we'll do it. Let's do it together. So we did. We plowed together and we raised millions upon millions of dollars. And I'm super proud of this because so many Canadians were helped because of it.
They won all of them pretty much.
Right.
3,000 people who were fined for going to parks, fined for seeing their family. And then, because the average person can't fight these fines.
No.
If the average person's left alone, you're screwed.
No, you can't.
Because you're going to lose your property. You're in trouble. But then when someone come together, so that's how you two combined, raise money, and then give people the...
So Ezra had the platform. I had the popularity. I was known everywhere.
At that point.
I mean, at that point, I was all over the place. I did tours, and I was more popular than the premier. When I was showing up, it was a lot more people than the premier would muster to bring. So I've done 10,000 people rallies, conferences, and so it worked really, really well. But of course, that enraged the government. So 3 weeks later, guess what happened?
What happened?
The SWAT team shows up, anti-terrorists. They know I have lawyers. The only thing they need to do is send a memo to my lawyer.
And then you could hand yourself in, but then
Right.
it's about sending a message out to
It's
the rest of the world.
for people, for you have to understand how simple the system is. Because I have been accused, just like you, that we're doing this for popularity stunt, it's theater. No. If there is any theater, it's from the other side, not from us. Because I'm telling you, being arrested, at least being Artur Pawlowski being arrested is no fun. They did so much damage to me that to this day I'm facing with the physical problems because of what they did to
And
me.
your children have to watch it.
Yeah.
Your children have to see their father being dragged. But what happened 3 weeks later?
So the only thing they needed to do is contact our lawyers, which they had already. They knew because they were dealing with tickets already, with citations. And they could say, there is a warrant for your client's arrest. Can you arrange for your client to turn himself in? That's it. Simple, right? I do my media outside of the police station, my whatever, and then I walk peacefully to the police. No one sees anything. No one knows anything. I go in and I deal with my trouble, whatever this is. But they have chosen to bring anti-terrorists to the church. Anti-terrorists to the church, to the peaceful church assembly with zero violence history. We've never been charged with assault. Zero. Nothing. The only charges I have is with me feeding the poor. All associated with me being a pastor.
No criminality, no violence, no risk.
So, no, zero. Anyway, SWAT team shows up. I'm already preaching, packed house, standing room only in a church. And someone yells, I'm already at the pulpit. I'm already preaching. And someone yells, Gestapo is here. So I'm thinking, okay, that's it. This is my day. I'm going down. And then I look at the man, and I was so proud of my Canadian brothers, and it was just incredible. I've never seen something like this before. You know what they would do? The men in the front rows, they would take their keys, their wallets, their phones, and they would hand those things to their wives. And they said, if they come to arrest you, we all go with you. Hundreds of men. That's power. That's how you beat those devils.
That's what they don't like, though.
Standing together as one. If one goes down, we all go down. One is elevated, we all are elevated. That's the solidarity message. And but they didn't. They realized they wanted to, but they realized it's just too many people. Too many people. Hundreds of people inside, hundreds outside. This is going to be gong show. So what they did, they dropped something on the ground. They would not even serve me. They would not even serve me. Nothing. They dropped it on the ground and they left.
What did they drop on the ground?
So they dropped later on, because I was not served. According to them, I was served, but I wasn't served.
You have to legally be served. They have to hand it to you.
They didn't. They just drop it on the ground because they got scared that there's too many people. It's going to be a gong show. It turned out it was John Rook the Crook, I call him, a court order that was done ex parte in closed court meeting without our knowledge.
So they had a closed court meeting about you, and this was them serving you the paper for it.
And they didn't notify our lawyers, and they subjected me to this crooked judge's court order. His name is John Rook the Crook. I have given him the nickname. And it turned out that if I will not stop, and again, my crime is church. If I will not stop doing this horrible crime, I'll be arrested. And I will be found in contempt of court, which is 6 months imprisonment.
Because they've given you the court order, okay, so I'm going through this now. So because they've managed to get the court order already, then if you breach the court order, then you're in contempt.
That's right.
So then they've got that, so then they can imprison you. So then now it's gone from civil to criminal.
That's right. That's right. So
I'm facing this now.
So now I was not served. They said I was. And people went home, and I went to a friend's car because I was told that the cops are everywhere. So I wanted, you see, here is the thing. I wanted to avoid my arrest. I was not looking to be arrested. Being arrested and being Artur Pawlowski is no fun because they always manhandle me. They always torture me. They always do bad things to me. So I was not looking forward to be arrested. And I went into my friend's car, my brother David as well, and we took a different road to avoid, just in case, if they're waiting for me. But no, they catch up.
Is this the footage of you on the motorway?
And I was in the middle of the highway, stopped by anti-terrorists. Anti-terrorists came, I don't know how many, a lot. And I was...
the images of this look like it's a terror raid, SWAT move.
SWAT anti-terrorists.
SWAT teams. You're a priest. You're a pastor.
So they came to the window. They said, there's a warrant for my arrest. I will be arrested. They turned to my brother David. My brother David was innocent. He didn't do anything. He's just my brother. And they turned to him, you're under arrest as well. So they arrested me and my brother David in the middle of the highway on my knees and with my hands like this. And they carried me because I said, if you're playing this game, how to become a Nazi, then do the Nazi style. I'm not going to help you. You have to carry me. So they did, but for that I paid dearly. They handcuffed me in such a way that was brutal pain.
Because now they need to bend you a little way. They know what they're doing.
It was a, and again, I used to be a professional boxer. I'm accustomed to pain. I was a martial art expert. Pain, it was every day. But the amount of pain that they inflicted me, I've never faced in my entire life. So what they did, they pushed me around, manhandled me, and they put me in a little paddy wagon upside down. So I was taken for a ride all around downtown, in places, upside down. So they placed me, my head on the ground.
Where were your hands? Behind your back?
So my hands like this, handcuffed, twisted. I had over...
Even just so people understand, even if you've got your handcuffs here and they put you in a wagon, it's because of how they've twisted your hands.
Yeah.
It's sore.
Oh, it's unbelievable. And
they can just, once they know if they bend your arm that way, it's agony.
I'm over 100 kilos, right? You know, when I was younger, I was not as big, but now 100 kilos on my wrists, it caused over 1 month of scars, a pain and blood all around it. So what they did, they pushed me to the paddy wagon, head down, but my feet were sticking out. And, you know, I'm not a small guy. So they pushed, but they couldn't fit my feet because I was upside down. And they said one to another, we're going to charge him with assault. We will always say that he kicked us and stuff like this. So we'll keep piling up. And I said, oh God, how am I going to get out of this if they will lie that
multiple
I assaulted
officers
them,
making
right?
accusations,
There's so many of them and they always say, yeah, he was kicking us. So I helped them to so I traveled to the police, first to downtown for coffee. I mean, not coffee for me, coffee for the officers. They took me for a ride. They stopped downtown. I could see it because it was the high rises. And they were multiple officers coming to the window.
To have a look.
Just have a look and laugh. And I'm like this on the ground, my feet sticking to the roof. So that's how I was taken to the police custody and then to the remand. 3 days, 2 nights on concrete, lights so bright that even if
they leave the lights on. They leave the lights on at night.
Yeah, on purpose. So 3 days and 2 nights I could not sleep. I was taken to with my brother David, shackled. Have you ever been subjected to the Penguin March? So Penguin March is
hands and feet both.
Yeah, and you got shackled feet and you walk small steps like a penguin. So we're taken to the judge. The judge starts proceedings. His name is Adam Germain. So you got John Rook the crook, and then you got Adam Germain. Adam Germain starts the proceedings and says we're in the middle of pandemic, and he recites CNN, CBC. And I turn to my brother David, we're doomed. This is a show trial. For some of you...
This is a show, because all of these actions are to send a message to them.
Show trial. But for you, if you don't know what show trial means, it's where the accused is guilty before even tried, that the government decided that you're already finished, you're done. It doesn't matter what is your defense, it means nothing. You're already guilty according to the government.
Before a judge or a jury?
It doesn't matter. We were before the judge, but it doesn't matter, it's all decided. So I was right. I went to the States. I spent 4 months in the United States touring around, telling Americans what's coming their way.
So you spend 3 days on remand. What happens when you get to court?
So the judge released us on bail.
Okay.
And we faced all those nonsense charges. The charges were, I've never even heard that you can be charged with something like this, but inciting people to come to church, officiating in illegal gathering, and participating in illegal gathering. The wording, I always tell the people, pay attention to the words, because those are identical words that the Nazis were using and the Soviets were using. Illegal gathering, gangsters, lawbreakers, troublemakers, bandits, right? During the Nazi era and during the Soviet era, people like me were called bandits. We were the bandits, we were the bad guys. No, we were patriots fighting for our land. No, we were the lawbreakers, we were the bandits. So, identical modus operandi, if you will. Fast forward, we were found guilty on all charges, and the judge gave us something that has never been done in the history of this country. He gave us a compelled court order.
What's that mean?
What that means is that every time we were to speak to another human being, either electronically in the church or between another human being, we were commanded by court to recite government-approved script about COVID-19.
So that any time you spoke publicly against the mandated vaccines or against the masks or against any of that, you had to give the government's narrative first.
First, yeah.
So there was no other narrative because you were legally bound to give their propaganda.
I was
before
bound. My brother
countering or giving any evidence that counters it.
Yeah. So if I didn't do it, I would be sent to prison for disobeying a court order. Right. So here's what we did with my brother David. There was a press conference. Rebel was there and other media outlets, and we just heard the sentencing. Right. Lots of money. We had to give up lots of money. And
do you mind if I ask how much you spent legally fighting this?
Millions. Millions of dollars already.
The process is the punishment?
Yeah, millions of
dollars. People understand this?
I've lost properties, I've lost houses. I used to be very successful.
I'm going from country to country hearing from anyone who stands up this lawfare.
Yeah.
This lawfare, which is what it is.
But I want you to know,
it's the same everywhere.
I want you to know I don't regret a thing. I did what my God was telling me to do, and I did it for you, and I did it for my children, because if we as men, if we as fathers and mothers will not stand up for the children, they have no future. So I don't regret a penny. Okay. In my heart, I'm completely clean. I know that if God wants me to have something, He's going to give it to me, or He's going to touch somebody's heart, and they will send it to me. But I did what I know I was supposed to do. If I was to do it again, I'd do it gladly. I would not even think twice. So here's what we did. Court, media, recordings, the whole 9 yards. I grabbed the microphone and I said, Judge, I want you to know I'll never ever obey your order.
Yeah.
I will never obey your order because I'm not a liar and I'm a pastor and I'm not going to lie to my people. So send your sheriffs. I'm here if you want and you can arrest me. But I want you to know I'll never obey your order, not once. My brother David grabs a mic and he says, Judge, I hope you're listening to me. You can take your order, you can shove it where the sun doesn't shine. And I turned to him, it's like, oh, you just finished us off, man. I did it the pastor's way, you did it the Polish way. I think we're now doomed. But they didn't come.
So it was all intimidation?
I never obeyed
the order. And they never implemented the punishment?
Never.
So it was all show trial to try and scare people because you stood up to it and challenged it?
Yeah, actually the first thing I did right at the court, I breached the court order right away. And right there, I mean, they could snatch me.
They could imprison you straight away because you broke their court order?
Yeah, but I said, I can't.
But the world's watching at this point.
As a pastor, I couldn't.
Yes.
It's like, I mean, am I a professional liar? Do I work for CNN or CBC right now? No. I do my best to tell people the truth, and this crook wants me to lie to the people. I cannot do that.
At this time, how many people are watching this? Is this blown up? Is this
millions.
The world are watching?
Millions.
So do you think like they weaponised the courts against you? Did you weaponise the public against them?
Oh, every single time, every single ticket, every single court, every appearance, I already went and I streamed it. And I talked to the people.
Public opinions with you?
Fox News was millions upon millions of views. I was everywhere. War Room, Bannon, Sky, Australia, everywhere that they have big, massive outlets, I was speaking.
So the public opinion was on your side?
Our side was on my side.
Yeah.
If it comes to a general public, they were scared.
Yeah.
They were completely scared. Now there's more people on our side than
They've seen the light.
2 years or 3 years ago.
People weren't sure.
Yeah, they still many believe that this is real and I'm a grandma's killer and all that stuff. So fast forward, I was charged multiple times with my brother David for attending a rally, for showing up. At that time we had thousands upon thousands of people coming every week. We had 10, 15,000 people on the streets of Calgary during the protests. And I have become Canada's pastor. They called me Canada's pastor. I was traveling everywhere. I was all over Canada. I was in Ottawa, Canada. They did 5,000 people sermon. I was in Saskatchewan. I was in Manitoba. I was British Columbia. I was back and forth, Calgary, cities around Edmonton. I did a huge rally at the legislature, which ended up on the news for 3 months. 3 months they were talking about it. So I'm like getting out there in their face, openly resisting, like openly, no muzzles, no social distancing, no...
I think every country needed to pass that.
Everything they were telling us to do, I did the opposite. If they told me not to sing, I hired more singers. When they told me no Lord's
And this
Supper,
was the solution to it.
yeah.
That's all the solution
They said,
was to it.
you cannot have a dinner. I invited the whole city for a dinner. Like literally, I invited the whole city to come. Free food, barbecue for everyone. Oh, so many people showed up. So that was my way of dealing with this lie. I call it the head-on collision. When I see the devil telling me something, I fight a head-on collision. Bring it on. You want to fight me? Fight me. Fight me. I'm here. I'm not running. I'm not hiding. If you Google my name, my home address pops up. I'm not hiding. I have the same cell phone since business, 20 years, the same cell phone. I'm not hiding. If you want to get me, I remember the Muslims called me once and they said they're going to chop my head off.
What for?
Just because I'm a Christian and vocal and they hated it. And they said, you're going to die today and we're going to chop your head off. And they said, today? Yeah, okay. So I gave them my home address and I said, I'll see you in 15 minutes. And they never showed up. That's how I fight. You will not intimidate me because I'll face you. And then see what happens. Who knows what happens? Because, they think that I'm just a regular Christian, a regular pastor, but I'm a fighter. I was trained to fight. And I'm not going to allow any weasel or hyena or wolf to intimidate me. I'm a lion. When I was young, I'll just show it to you. So here is a picture when I was young. Now of course I lost a lot of hair. And you know what I mean? It's like, come on. I'm not going to be intimidated by like I had a lot more hair at that time, but it's just lions do not bow before the hyenas. We eat them for breakfast. That's why I have been eating very well. But going back to the story. We were getting momentum. They were losing grip on the narration. They were losing grip on the story, on everything. And we were really getting momentum. We were scaring them. Truck convoy comes.
So all of this is before the truck convoy.
Yeah.
Do you think
this is like just?
Do you think this built?
Tiny
do you think this played the part into?
Oh, 100%.
The truck convoy.
I don't want to sound arrogant. But I'm telling you,
it wouldn't have happened without this.
I think that all of this...
inspired people.
It was around the world. This story was every news outlet for months, not days. For months they were talking about. If you Google my name, it's like thousands upon thousands.
Canada broke COVID. Canada broke the vaccine mandates. The Canadian public, which went on to the truckers' convoy, said, okay, so bring us up to where we're at now. You've lost the court case. They've given you the court order. You've defied it and defied it and defied it.
And I appealed it.
So what happens?
I won.
You won the appeal, okay.
I won the whole appeal and they had to give me all my money back.
Okay. When was this?
That was about a year after. So 2021, we lose the court.
Yep.
And then 2022, we win the appeal 100%.
When's the vaccine mandate come in from Trudeau?
Yeah, they came 2021.
Okay.
This was unleashed in 2021, and then more and more people started to rise up. And at that time, I was called Canada's pastor or freedom pastor. Sometimes they refer to me. And again, I'm doing shows every single day, multiple times a day, big outlets. So this is just getting momentum. More and more people are joining. I didn't hear about some of those people that now are very well known. They were not activated after a few years. We were already fighting a few years when I started to see others. I wanted to tell you something, because sometimes when people watch those crazy videos of me yelling at the police, and I've done it many times, because they attacked me, attacked my family, attacked our church. They have attacked the people that I was called to protect. And that's why I did what I did. I told them to get out. I called them names because I was doing everything in my power to shake them as well. Here is a crazy part of the story. In the city of Calgary, we get about 1.3 million people and over 2,000 police officers. Just over 2,000 police officers. Now imagine, Tommy, if just over 2,000 people would say no.
That's it. That's it.
What would the mayor do? Excuse me.
You can't arrest 2,000 people.
Those people are a bunch of cowards. Those politicians are cowards. I know them. I know them by name. I used to hang around with them, with Prime Minister many times. I was always on at their barbecues. I know those people. They're cowards. Without the help of the police, they would not do anything. So just 2,000 people. If those 2,000 people would simply say, no, I'm not following illegal orders. I'm not going to hurt other people. That's insane. I'm not doing it. It would be over. That's it. Game over.
This is how simply we could have all stood up against the whole
That's
tyranny
it.
worldwide.
It would be all over. We would win, and so many lives, countless lives would be protected. So going back to the story, at that time we have a momentum. Canadians are rising up, and the more the Trudeau's government, the globalist government, is pushing, the more people are rising up. The more they are arresting us, the more they are making us a spectacle. In other words, they were making an example out of us. God was making an example out of them. The more they were doing crazy things, the more our views, our story was getting out. Our validation for what we were doing was being explained in this weird way by what the government was doing against us, because it didn't make any sense. It did not make any sense that you could go to a restaurant and you can eat, but you have to walk muzzled up, and when you are sitting, then you can take it off, and that's perfectly okay. It just doesn't make any sense. The virus doesn't work that way. It's not just flowing here.
It was just about controlling and letting you know we're controlling.
All of it. It was just...
I went to a swimming pool in Tenerife where you had to wear a mask
to
walk across the swimming pool.
Which is insane, especially if you know how this whole thing works, that moisture is creating bacteria and fungus and all other crazy things that are really dangerous to the human body. So they're arresting us left and right. I got arrested with my brother David in the middle of the highway, arrested coming from a rally with my wife by RCMP. RCMP is like American FBI. I was arrested by...
With your wife, did you just say? You was arrested with your wife?
My wife was there with me. We attended a rally. I was arrested and charged with criminal harassment. They charged me criminal harassment. And I attended a rally, peaceful rally with my brother David and my son Nathaniel, and on the way home got arrested in the middle of the highway again. Me and my brother David charged with criminal insanity, again participating in illegal gathering.
Mischief?
Not mischief yet.
Okay.
I was charged with criminal harassment. I was charged with participating in illegal gathering and not having distance and not wearing a muzzle. I went to the United States for 4 months, called my lawyers from Montana, and I said, is there any warrants for my arrest? So just psychologically, I would like to know what I'm heading into. No, nothing. It's clean, everything. So I boarded the plane. In the middle of coming here to Calgary, they activated 2 warrants. Tommy, have you ever seen anyone being arrested on the tarmac?
Of an aeroplane coming off the plane.
I've never seen anyone being arrested on the tarmac except Hollywood productions, movies. Never.
So when you landed here from America, they were waiting on the tarmac of the plane.
So they were waiting. I stepped out of the plane right in the middle of the tarmac. I got arrested on my knees, taken to the customs where the Calgary police, the finest, were waiting like rats.
You were arrested by the
hiding.
immigration, the same people who arrested me the other day.
Yeah, customs.
Yeah.
They arrested me and paraded me through the whole tarmac, the plane here.
See, they don't understand. See, when they do this, because they made that public, yeah? They think they're sending a message to everyone, but they're not. I think that has the adverse effect.
Yeah, but they don't get that
They
because what they want to do, they want to make an
Terrifying.
example out of you to scare others. But they don't understand how
It's a fine
this
line between
whole-
making an example and making a martyr.
That's right. So they were turning me into a martyr, international martyr. And I was taken to the customs. They were going through my stuff. I'll never forget this. They look at me as I was being searched and they said, well, look everywhere. It's like they thought I was smuggling something. And I told them, I'm not smuggling Donald Trump. He's too big. He would not fit into the luggage. Well, I wish I could, but you know.
I wish I could bring him here to sort out Justin Trudeau.
So I was taken to jail and charged
Charged with what?
criminally.
Criminally charged.
This time charged criminally with not wearing a muzzle. I was charged criminally for inciting people to come to an illegal gathering. I was charged criminally for officiating an illegal gathering and participating in illegal gathering and baptizing my daughter. So my daughter, at that time, she was 13, and I baptized her in a public river, in a public park, outside. They charged me criminally for having a church service, illegal gathering. So this was piling up over
Is that
40.
you pushing? Was that you provoking them?
No, I was just living my life.
Good.
I was just, you see, listen, I would not allow them.
What I mean is, I don't mean that in a negative way, because I think it's great. What I mean is,
No, I understand what you
you're
mean.
pushing their buttons, or you're testing the boundaries to prove to people we should be free to do this.
I simply was saying to everyone, I'm not
free.
going to bow
Yeah.
before this insanity. This is insane. If this was a real crisis, then I would do everything. I would do my part. But when you're telling me that in the name of health, I cannot save lives, then you're just fat big liar.
And I'm going to test you.
And I'm not going to obey this because obviously you're lying to me. If this was real, Tommy, if this was a real emergency, then I would be highly respected by the government and helped because I was doing what the government is supposed to be doing. I was feeding people, I was helping lives, I was making sure that they are fed properly so they would not get sick. I should get a medal from them, not the ticket. So fast forward, I get in and out of jail, in and out of court. This whole machinery is just really, really moving forward. They're piling up charges more and more and more, hoping that one day I will not get out on bail. And then the truck convoy comes. At this moment, I'm really very well known. They called me and they said, Pastor, would you become our pastor? For the truck convoy. And I mean, I'm telling you, they didn't have to ask. It was a great honor for me to be part of this movement. And
did you go on the truck convoy?
they came to Calgary, and I did officiate a church service in the evening, and I activated my whole church community. We fed them, we brought truckloads of food, and we loaded them into Ottawa. They went with stuff and food and water and everything else we could muster. My wife with the ladies cooked amazing chili for them, and so we did a church service in the evening, and I did another one in the morning.
So people who don't understand, so the truck convoy, they put in a mandate that truckers are going to have to be vaccinated as well. And then there was a massive truck convoy from across the whole of Canada joining together, heading to the Ottawa.
Yes.
And they come in their thousands. So they want you to be their pastor. This is happening at the height of COVID, at the height of restrictions. This is the resistance, and this become the resistance
January
for the world.
of 2022.
January 2022. And this becomes symbolic to the world. This was
Yes.
this was stand up, and the Canadians are standing up. The whole world is watching Canada.
Yeah. So here's what I saw, because in my trials, this was popping up all the time. The Crown prosecutors like Stephen Johnston, and I'm naming those devils,
Good.
those pathological liars. Stephen Johnston is a liar and he's in charge of prosecuting all the prisoners, the political prisoners, to this day. Yesterday, I was with 2 boys from Quds that are still subjected, 2 years in prison already from that era because they dared to stand against the mandate. Stephen Johnston and all those crooked judges. And so
these people are heroes that stood
Yeah,
up.
yeah,
These people who you may not know their names, you may not know their stories, but they've lost their houses, they've lost their
Tony
jobs.
Olenig and Chris Carbert are still imprisoned by Trudeau's government and conservative government here that keeps them in prison. Pedophiles, bank robbers, drug dealers, human traffickers are let out on bail. Violent criminals are the next day on bail. Those men have no criminal record, they have no violent prior convictions or even allegations, nothing, zero, and they were denied bail multiple times because they were charged with conspiracy to commit murder. They were charged with conspiracy to murder police officers at the truck convoy, which is insanity, insane. But going back to the story, I did church services. They started to roll to Ottawa. I came home and I said to my wife, I'm flying there. I'm going to Ottawa. And you know, thank God for wise women. We need them. My wife always laughs and says, you know why more men are born? Because you just kill each other. You're just stupid. You go into places that you shouldn't go and you do stuff that you shouldn't be doing. And God knows that. And she said to me, if all men will go to Ottawa, who's going to stay here and organize stuff here, the resistance here? You've got 15,000 people regularly coming to the protest. Who's going to be here with them, for them? Who's going to lead them? If you go and everyone else goes to Ottawa, what is going to happen here? Here we got the momentum. Here's huge, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And you know what? I really wanted to go to Ottawa, but she made sense. And I stayed and I organized rallies and participated in big gatherings, and then the Coutts happened. Coutts is a border between Montana and Alberta. It's a point of entry. And some farmers with few truckers decided to block it, to go over there and send a message to Trudeau's government and conservative government here that they're going.
Is that the American border?
Yes,
Okay.
that they're not going to put up with the mandates anymore, because the mandates were demanding an experimental injection of something that has not been tested into their body.
It's not being unreasonable. No one's being unreasonable. Really,
Right? So,
apart from the government.
so I was okay to drive that truck for 2 years under COVID. Everything was fine. And I remember they were viewed as heroes. The truckers were heroes. And suddenly I'm the villain. Nothing changed. I'm alone in my truck. Alone.
But now I need to be vaccinated.
And now I need to put this in. Why? Why? Right? So those were valid questions. So they decided to do a slow roll and eventually stop. And I received a phone call that there is lots of them, like thousands of them, and they are really desperate because the police showed up with machine guns, are pointing machine guns at children playing hockey, street hockey. And it's like you could see the tension. And so they called their pastor and they said, would you come and just cheer us up? Because they know I always bring music, I bring musicians, I bring food, speakers, and I'm not just preaching. I'm bringing the whole entourage of things.
Festival atmosphere.
And we're always joyful, and we always sing happy songs, and it's a real church service. And we have Lord's Supper, and people really feel the energy, the power. So I said, sure, I'll come. I took my son Nathaniel, took our worshiper, took speakers, brought food, and went to Milk River. Milk River is about 15 kilometers from Coutts, and the RCMP officers decided to block this whole street so we could not enter Coutts. So we did a church service in Milk River. It was great, thousands of people. We had a great time. Our worshiper was singing hymns. We did a national anthem. I did a sermon. RCMP was videotaping me, taking pictures. I don't care. I always, all my trials were my own evidence because I live stream everything. So most of the things that they were accusing me of, they took it from my YouTube channel, which later on government took it down, and other places. So anyway, I did the church service in Milk River, and I went straight to the RCMP officers and I said, listen, I would really like to go to Quds. Will you open the barricade? And they said like, okay, sure. I was shocked. I'll tell you why I was shocked, because I was already prepared. I had a helicopter waiting for me, and I had a big combine. I had a huge rig. I already had another route to go to Quds. I would enter there this way or that way, but I was really surprised that the RCMP opened the barricade for us, and I went to Quds. Quds is a little village and has one restaurant, Smuggler's Inn it's called, and that's where all the truckers and farmers were gathering. So I entered there, and we set up speakers. We did Lord's Supper, we did national anthem, we were singing hymns, and I delivered 19-minute sermon. 19-minute sermon. During that sermon, I told the people to stand for God and state-given rights. I told them to do it peacefully, no guns, no swords. I told them to do it for their children, for the future of their children. I told them what I saw on their solidarity movement with Lech Wałęsa. I told them we have the power. They don't have enough police officers to stop millions of people. I mean, the moment you decide it's over, it's over. Give me enough Canadians and I will give you liberty. Give me enough Albertans and I will bring back the sanity. I mean, it's so easy if we are all coming together.
If we unify.
That was the message. Oh, I didn't know that simple message is going to end up for me in this crazy way. Police was there, undercover were there, not a big deal, I have nothing to hide. Filmed the event, published it, and called few of my politician friends, good guys, and I told them, well, can you help me to facilitate a sit down with the provincial government and the truckers to validate the protest, because you need to force them kind of in a peaceful way to sit down so they can listen.
But they wanted to crush them instead.
No,
they don't want to listen.
They didn't want to come and validate the message. So what they did, when I announced I'm coming back to the border with politicians, this time friendly politicians, I stepped out of my house and Tommy, I'm telling you, I've never seen something like this before. There was so many police cars, blocked the entire street. Police officers are running towards me, yelling, Artur Pawlowski, you're under arrest. There was RCMP, that's like American FBI. There was undercover Calgary police, uniformed Calgary police, detectives, special anti-terrorism unit, special SWAT team with cameras. The whole 9 yards came. Every force in the land, except soldiers,
this is at your home?
Came to my house to arrest me. And I was charged with inciting mischief, which has 10 years criminal offense, and I was charged with terrorism. So they charged me with terrorism, but they did it in a clever way. They charged me with this new law that they invented, which is interfering with the crucial infrastructure under the Defense Act, which is like blowing up pipes or doing crazy things like this. Well, I have never blocked the street. I came to Quds, the roads were open. I left the Quds, the roads were open. Never once I told them to block anything. I was there in the capacity of a clergy, and I did my job. I cheered them up, and I told them that God is on our side. Stand strong, don't quit, don't give up. Have hope. And stick together, hold the line. And interrogated for hours, and then the shocker came. Stripped naked, taken to prison, solitary confinement.
You was from this.
And no water. And the next day, they placed me in metal cages. I didn't even know the Canadian prison system has metal cages. The metal cage is no bigger than a guy sitting like this. Literally, like this. You're sitting in a metal cage and you can't move. I'm a pastor. My crime was opening my big mouth and saying few words to the people. And I end up in a metal cage, like an animal in Canadian prison.
In Canada.
And
do people understand this?
And if this was not good enough, I was forced to go to the washroom, watched by officers.
This is to humiliate you, yeah.
Then I was stripped naked again.
I've been there. Did you have to squat?
Then,
squat over.
Then of course, then they took me to the X-ray machine, and multiple times. And then back into the metal cage. So that was going on for hours and hours and hours. I was kept there suffocating. Like, you're passing out because your in a very small place, extremely hot. You're sweating, no air, and you're passing out, in and out of consciousness. So eventually they put me in another cell, and I spent in isolation 40 some days. Every night they would take me from my cell to a concrete cell. No water, no washroom, no bed.
Just a concrete floor.
Just concrete. It was hard. It was hard. First few is not bad, but after a while your body aches because of the
your
heart.
body, even just laying, I know.
Yeah.
And you know when you lay on this side, it's like you've bruised it.
Yeah.
From laying hard, and it's like you can't lay on that side, and you can't lay on that side. You can't lay on
you
that
walk.
side.
You walk a lot in a circle.
You can't lay down.
And there were so many stories. I was the good thing that happened is I was really treated like a hero by inmates. We have testimonies already of 5 different inmates that testified to our lawyers that the guards were giving them incentives to murder me in prison.
Yeah, they're encouraging. So a price is put on your head in the prison system. They'll allow them. It gets rid of the problem for the system. So you're lucky.
Yeah,
You're lucky.
So, but
You're lucky. You probably earned their respect previous to landing in there.
so they would come to my cell, and they would
Lucky
look.
you didn't have jihadis in there.
And they said, they were Muslims. I'll tell you a cool story with Muslims. And they said, aren't you that pastor that gets arrested all the time? I said, yeah, guilty as charged. Well, you're a hero, man. Good that you stood against those, and they call them names and all that stuff. So immediately when the word got around that I am in solitary confinement because I'm this pastor that it's on the news all the time, because they have newspapers, right? My face was all over the news all the time. So I became a prison hero. When I was being escorted from my solitary cell to a concrete cell, they were banging on the doors every single day. Free Pastor Art, free Pastor Art. And you got a whole prison system yelling and screaming at the guards, free Pastor Art. So that freaked them out because the inmates said, watch your back. Anything happens to this man, watch your back.
It's good.
They signed a petition to the director of prison, and they said, if you don't release this man from solitary, you're going to have a problem. Next day I was released from isolation. So
How long did you do on isolation? Tell people what that's like, just so people understand. What's it like to be solitary confined for 40 days?
So
What's it like coming in there? What's it like, how long are the days? When does day become night? When does night become day?
Yeah, so you don't know because there's no watch. The time is, I can describe it this way. On this side of prison, time is your worst enemy. And inside, time is your worst enemy. So here, because we're always trying to catch up, there's never enough, right? We do so many things and the time goes so fast. Over there, it drags its feet. There's nothing to do. I was locked in a small little room, and they would not give me my reading glasses, and they confiscated my Bibles.
Was it cold? Warm? Hot or cold?
It was extremely hot in Calgary.
Which is bad.
So hot that we were half naked.
You're just sitting in your pants all the time.
He's just sweating. You're sitting and you're sweating because it's so hot. We were told for all this time that air conditioning is broken. But then I got another treatment, but I'll get into it. So finally, when they released me from isolation and I was able to have interactions with other inmates.
Just to confirm quickly, they locked you up at the start of the convoy. This is when the convoy's going on, so they want you out of the way.
So here is a funny part.
They want you gone.
I was the first person, to be arrested for truck convoy.
Okay, so you, as a pivotal figure, they needed gone.
I was the first one to be arrested before Tamara, before Chris Carr.
They got rid of all the top people straight away. Bang.
Everybody else, they started to arrest a week after me. They got rid of me first.
Okay.
And I could not understand this at first, what was going on, but then it clicked. I was giving people hope to keep going. They needed to get that out, and because of the international attention. So when I was driving to Coutts, while I was driving, I was on 50 radio stations.
This is why they let you go there. Do you think this is why they let you into Coutts?
Probably.
So they had something to get you on.
That's probably
why they opened the gates.
Probably. Probably this was already planned. And again, I don't regret what I saw. What I saw over there was absolutely beautiful. People loving each other, hugging. There was no color. Color didn't matter. Background didn't matter. It didn't matter where you came from. We were Canadians. People were bringing their cats, their dogs, their horses, feeding each other, praying with each other, crying with each other, singing. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen on Canadian soil. I am so super proud that I was able to taste at least a little bit of that feeling, that being proud of being a Canadian. I think for the first time in my life, I look at the Canadian flag and I said, I love you. You're awesome. Canada, you're amazing. As long as you have people like this land will not perish. It was absolutely amazing thing. So I'm in prison, and finally they released me from isolation. I was able to do church services for the inmates. I think I broke some kind of a record because I had every single inmate at my church services.
And the churches are usually empty in prisons.
Including Muslims and atheists, drug dealers, men for hire.
You're dangerous.
Everyone was there. And it was so funny because God gave me this authority that I was scolding them when they were not behaving. I would come to them, and they're hardcore criminals, gangsters, tattoos, stuff. And I was like, stop this immediately. I mean, I'm not going to allow something like this happening. And they're like, and they look at me into my eyes, and they could not figure it out. But they did. They respected what I did, and they respected that I'm not afraid of them. It's like they met someone that stands his ground no matter what, and they loved me for it. So after a few days, I had all of them coming to my cell for prayers, for words of encouragement, and I had Muslims coming to me. And here's a funny part of the story. They said, we are being tormented in our cells. We had demons and we cannot sleep. We're tormented. Pastor, can you come and pray and cast all those demons out? And of course, if you have been in prison, in Canadian prison, you're not allowed to go to another inmate's cell. But I said, what are they going to do to me? Lock me in solitary or prison? I was already in prison. So I went, I prayed in their cells, I casted out the demons, and the next day they would come and said, wow, this is the first time that we had a great night's sleep. Thank you. Those Muslims were actually giving me their time on the phone. And if you know what I'm talking about.
You get a certain limited time span.
We had 2 phones working for the entire unit. Phone is a commodity that is precious.
People are kill over it.
So I walked out of prison cell because I was locked. The moment I walked out, they would call me and said, here is your phone. I felt sometimes like I'm some kind of El Chapo, Al Capone in prison, like this high-ranking gangster.
It shows a level of respect that people respect someone who stands up, even if they don't agree with them on politically. Or
they had huge respect for me. I was able to lead some of them to the Lord. I was able to cry with them. And
how long did you spend in prison?
50 days. But this is not the end of the story. I was so successful with those inmates. I had every one of them at my tables, Bible studies, talks, church services, that one day the guards came and they said, you have to follow us. I said, well, what for? There's someone waiting for you. And so I had no choice, as you know how it is. I followed the guy, and they took me to admission, and there were sheriffs waiting for me. I was shackled right on the spot, kidnapped by the sheriffs. I was kidnapped by the Canadian government and taken to MaxPod. You know what the MaxPod is? MaxPod is a prison for the most dangerous terrorists in the country.
They took you to maximum security prison because of the influence you was having in the jail. Yeah. They couldn't have you having that influence, and they had to separate you from that.
I had such a huge influence on them.
A positive influence.
Entire prison was banging on the doors when I was being transferred, when I walked everywhere. It was like boom, like you see in Hollywood movies. Also, my son and my wife and my brother David were staging the longest ongoing protest outside of the prison in the history of Canadian prison outside. So I was preaching on the inside, they were preaching on the outside, the whole church, sometimes hundreds of people, big rig, big pickup trucks, and those semi trucks would come honking. My wife would rent 4 huge, massive speakers and would blast the speakers on the entire prison, and the prisoners were jumping, dancing, singing. We turned this whole thing into something that they have never seen before.
A massive positive from a negative.
And
you're meant to be in there isolated, feeling terrible. You're in there living, helping, which is what you're saying.
Sometimes when I was released, I was allowed half hour to 1 hour out, and of isolation. So I would grab the phone, and sometimes the timing was so perfect that I would call my wife. She would put me on speakerphone.
You talk to the people outside the jail.
And I was preaching, telling what is happening to me to the guards. There was hundreds of them, police, sheriffs, Calgary police, guards. They unleashed everyone. Everyone was there. They were so scared. Also, they did Jericho marches around the prison, which has never been done before. Children coming, families. It was incredible. So every time they were doing this, I would be taken to isolation on concrete, so I would not see it. Twice during this time, the Crown Prosecutor came and offered me a plea deal. If you plead guilty to just you
can go home.
You can go home. Just the lowest charge, you can go home.
Because then they justify you accepted that you've done wrong.
They wanted front page.
Yeah,
Artur Pawlowski.
accepted. This is why he's there.
Pled guilty.
What did you say?
Guilty. That's it. I said absolutely not. You know, there's no way you're going to force me to. I not only that, I did interviews, media interviews from jail. So they shut off my phone.
Yeah.
So the Muslims came to my aid, and they were giving me their phones. Because there is an ORCA number, which is the inmate's number. You use that number with your voice activation and takes you to a different phone. We have messed up their entire system. They never knew which inmate is going to give me a phone, so they started to beat them up. They were actually beating the inmates. If you give him a phone, you're going to get a treatment, and they never stopped giving me their phones. It was incredible to see this, the courage of those prisoners. Because it's no fun, you know, being in the system of the beast. So they kidnapped me because I had great influence. The church was on the outside, I was on the inside. I was the most popular inmate in the country, probably. So they took me to Edmonton, which is hundreds of kilometers from Calgary, and they locked me up by myself in the entire MaxBot prison.
Solitary unit.
There was no one, hundreds of empty cells.
Just you.
And just me. It was Matrix. I've never seen something like this. Freezing cold. It's minus 28 outside, and I'm sitting there. I don't know how to describe this unit. It was iron and a bulletproof plexiglass or some kind of a glass. And you're sitting there and you're shivering non-stop. It's so crazy cold. So you're not allowed to talk to a guard. I received a letter that I am the most dangerous inmate in the country, and I am not allowed to have any interaction with another human being. No interactions. So I only could communicate, could not see a face. They didn't want me to see any human face. So I was only allowed to communicate with guards through the intercom. And they were, of course, watching me on camera like 24 hours. And I said, I'm freezing here. I'm shivering. I cannot sleep. I'm freezing. I'm going to get sick. And he laughed and he said, at least you have fresh air. I was allowed out of the freezing isolation only for 30 minutes. Shower, a phone call. So I called my wife and I said my goodbyes. I think this was the first time in my life I realized I'm not coming out. I think they're going to murder me here. And they're going to say I had a heart attack or I froze to death or whatever. They're going to find something. I think it has been decided that I'm not coming out. So my wife is a brave, and she's a real fighter. Remember, she fought for me for 7 years, and she survived. That tells you everything. She unleashed everything she could, and the lawyers sent a letter to the judge, and they said everything I was saying, what is happening to me. And that freaked them out because the prison system is privately owned institution. It's a business. It's a privately owned business. So that scared them. And you won't believe what happened next. That's why I wrote a book. It's called The Lions Do Not Bow. I wrote a book about this because it's so insane, it's so complex, so many things happened that I had to sit down and put this whole thing in the form of a book. Next day, I was taken by multiple officers, and they paraded me through the prison in Edmonton, and they took me to a psych ward. When they opened the doors,
Psychotic, as in healthcare?
yeah,
Medical ward? Yeah.
No, not medical.
The psychotic ward.
It's a mental institution.
The mental part, yeah.
So I saw people jumping up and down, walking in a circle. So I asked officers, where am I? And they start to laugh. They said, you're in a wild, wild west. I said, what that even means? You're in a psych ward. So here is what happened. They broke every law that there is. They are not allowed to put a sane person without the evaluation of the doctors,
Into the medical unit.
without even the knowledge of Alberta Health Services, into a mental institution or a psych ward in prison. Not because they care for the sane people so much, they care for the insane people. They cannot put a sane person with insane people because the sane person can take advantage of the insane people. That's the reasoning. So I spent a week in a psych ward against the law, illegally. And it was quite funny because in a mental institution, you have the biggest amount of time outside of yourself. So that was a good thing. The good thing was there were 2 TVs. In other places, no TV, or for a few minutes only. Here you can watch entire movies. So I was super happy. I said, okay, at least the time will pass. I'll watch some movies. Somehow I'll survive this. Well, I didn't know that in psych ward, you don't watch movies. You watch only 10 minutes. So 10 minutes, and someone would jump out because they were laying on the ground and switch a channel. And then you watch another movie. 10 minutes, someone would jump and change. So I was there for a week, and I watched maybe about 60, 70 portions of movie, not even one full one. And it was crazy. They locked me with a schizophrenic that chopped his brother with a machete.
They put you in a cell.
And they put me there, so he would jump from time to time. He had some visions.
Yeah, he's psychotic, so he might think you're going to kill him or you're a danger to him. So
Right.
He might try and...
During that time, I was considered the most dangerous inmate in the country, so I was not allowed to have a pen. Because you see, I was writing a book on the pieces of paper, and my lawyer was smuggling the papers. So they decided they will turn me into the most dangerous inmate, so I will not be able to write, because they refused to give me a paper and a pen. So I was writing on the pieces of prison papers, and I walked to this cell with this guy, and I see he has about 10 pens, and I said to him, according to them, I'm so dangerous, I'm not allowed to have a pen. And he jumps and says, well, you can have mine. So he gave me his own pen, and I kept writing, and I wrote a book in jail. And thanks to our brave lawyers, she smuggled it out of the prison, and it's going to be published in August, beginning of September. It's already with the American publisher.
Okay.
And I'm telling you, I'm naming everything and everyone. During that time, I was released eventually on bail, and I spent 1.5 years on house arrest. I was on house arrest for 1.5 years. During that time, I had the Canadian government coming to me about 10 times with bribery.
Trying to get you to
I had the offer of $2 million. Before that even, I had offer of a guaranteed seat at the legislature. So this conservative government that we have right now in the province of Alberta offered me, if I keep my mouth shut, they offered me a guaranteed seat at the legislature. I could be a politician if I keep my mouth shut, because I was criticized.
If you join the club.
Then I was offered a government job, $250,000 a year. I was offered all kinds of things. When finally, that was going on for about 8 months to 10 months before the trial. When they finally realized that I'm not for sale, because I told them, I'm not for sale. I have been already bought by the precious blood of Jesus. I'm not for sale. I'm not going to sell Jesus, my family, for silver coins. We know how the story ends. Judas hanged himself. I'm not doing this. When they realize I'm not taking the offers, then are you familiar with political fixers term?
Go on.
So political fixers are the people, very powerful, huge names that are doing deals behind closed doors for politicians. So they will see you, they will meet you, and they will bring you offers, or they will bring you.
So the politician stays clean.
Yeah. So there is no connection.
Between
There's
you
no.
and the politician, but they will
You
do-
cannot record them.
Yeah.
At that time, I had a premier herself called me, and we had a conversation and stuff like this. I was offered all kinds of different things. Well, finally, when they realized I'm not for sale, they started to unleash the political fixers. And the fixer's job is to fix the problem the politicians have. And they have all kinds of tools at their disposals. If you're not taking bribes, they will have compromise material. You know, you with kids, or if you're married with some girl, you know, whatever. Whatever works for you. It's a honeypot, they call it. Or maybe you took something you shouldn't, whatever. But the problem they have nothing on me because I don't do stuff like this. So there is no dirt. They couldn't find anything. They froze my bank account and they looked into my finances. So they tried everything. They couldn't find anything. So then they went into blackmail and the coercion and threats. You know, during that time, they lit my house on fire. In the middle of the night, they lit our house on fire.
Your family's house was set fire to.
3 kids in the house sleeping. I'm sleeping. My wife comes and says, I think you're going to be arrested. What's happening? I come out of the bedroom, 12 at night or 1 in the morning. There's so much police lights everywhere. So I look out and say, but this is weird. Normally when they come to arrest me, because they came to my house multiple times, many times, detectives, police, bylaws services, everyone was in my house. Before, so I thought I'm going to be arrested. But I said, they're firefighters. Usually when they come to arrest me, there's no need for ambulances or firefighters. So I went out to check it out. And then I saw smoke, fire. I said, I think the neighbor's house is on fire. And then I went back, it was our house. Someone lit our house on fire in the middle of the night. They vandalized our church for 3 months. They lit our church on fire. They burned our children's bus to the ground. They unscrewed tires in my pickup truck. And a friend of mine at that day was driving and the tire just took off on its own. I was physically attacked. I was threatened multiple times. I had Antifa coming to our home dressed in black.
Why would Antifa be against you?
Antifa works for the government.
I know this. So
Yeah.
Just so people understand. Antifa,
The brown shirts,
I'll
right?
take for the brown shirts of the government. You come out against any of the government narratives and they are ordered to attack,
Yeah.
violently attack,
So-
violently scare, intimidate.
You know, some people will say this is far-fetched, this is crazy. Well, if you are in Alberta, you will know that NDP was the government before this one, and the head security for the premier, Rachel Notley, is the head of Antifa in Alberta. You can't make this stuff up. They're not even hiding this whole thing. It's craziness. So it was a scary time, Tommy. It was a scary time. I had to look.
It's a scary time because what have you actually done?
See,
Stood up.
I just said no.
Yeah, and they have to. So what happens next then, Arthur?
And the fixers were scary, I have to admit, because if I tell you their names, your hair would stand up. They're the most powerful, vicious people in the country. They are the ones that work for Putin, making deals between Putin and Canadian government with oil and what is Putin owns the oil company, the Gazprom.
The biggest gas company in
Right,
Canada.
so they were the ones that were making deals between Prime Minister's office and Putin. I mean, those are bad people. They are very wealthy,
Powerful people.
vicious, very powerful people. So I started to receive phone calls from them. And they said, listen, there has been a meeting between...
From Russians.
Yeah, well,
You've got Russians threatening a Canadian citizen on behalf of the Canadian government.
so they said there has been a meeting between Stephen Harper. Stephen Harper is our ex-Prime Minister. Jason Kenney, the Premier of Alberta at that time. And there was a meeting between Pierre Poilievre. Pierre Poilievre is the future prime minister
Yep.
has already been decided. We already know that it doesn't matter if you vote or not. He has been chosen by the elites to be the next prime minister. So there is no free elections. And I said, what? Because Pierre is being viewed as the new hero, as the
Yeah, I'm
freedom,
seeing him
right?
be built up as a good guy.
Yeah.
Seems like a good
But,
guy.
yeah, the one that threw Christine Anderson under the bus and said she's vile, evil, and the one that didn't stand for us during the COVID at all, threw us under the bus. The same one that his sister made millions of dollars selling COVID tests. That's the same family. I mean, I agree.
But most people don't know this.
No.
Most
no,
people just see
no.
the,
And they wanna,
the image portrayed to the
and
public.
they don't want to know because it's not convenient. They see this big bad Trudeau as the villain, and they see another person as the hero, and they think that if they choose the lesser of two evils or that hero, their problems are going to be fixed. But they're all the same. All the ruling parties, the NDP, the Conservatives, and the Liberals, are all part of this evil that was unleashed on the Canadian people. So, for example, during the arrests, Conservative government arrested more people, more pastors, than the Chinese government during the COVID era. Conservative government, not the Liberal. Conservative government arrested more pastors than the Chinese government during this time. Crazy, eh?
Yeah, it's crazy.
It is crazy because you look at them and say, well, those are the good guys. And it turns out they're all bad guys. If you're in power at this moment, and if you're not standing up for the people, you're part of the problem. But anyway, going back to the fixers, I asked them why Pierre Poilievre is part of this. And they said, well, because you are talking about the Conservative Party in Alberta, and you're exposing things that might hurt his next election, because we have election next year. And this jeopardizes his election. So they have decided to eliminate you from the board. That's what they use. They said they have decided to eliminate you from the board, and you have to pay. They came with this solution. You give $100,000 to me, $50,000 to the charity of their choice, and you withdraw yourself from public life for 2 years, and we will fix your problem with the judge. Because the judge is bought and paid for. The judge works for us. Gordon Krinky is his name, the judge. He works for us. And that was going on for 3 months. And I've got all the recordings and everything of this. And 3 months of coercion, blackmail, threats. And they said, if you go up, pack your bags because you're not coming out. So they intended to assassinate me in prison. So that was a serious threat from very powerful people. And I'm telling you, I prayed and I prayed and I said, God, do not allow them to kill me like this. I mean, come on, this is horrible, to die like this. And I faced the judge, and guess what? They were right. The judge was bought and paid for.
And what happened?
He found me guilty of everything. And he said that every person that took part of the truck convoy is a criminal as well. And because I encouraged them, I'm a criminal as well. I have been found guilty of terrorism. I have been found guilty of inciting mischief. He found me guilty of breach of a release order. I faced decades of imprisonment. So that was, I think that was March or May of last year. And
have you appealed it?
So this is not the end of the story. And I've decided to do what I always do. I started to talk as hard as possible. I activated every friend I knew, every person that was interested in my story before, and I begged them to help me. Please spread the word around. Please let the people know that Artur Pawlowski is still fighting and he's not taking a knee. I'm not bowing. And I might die. So this is your last opportunity to interview me. So I did interviews after interviews after interviews, and the American politicians got involved. And they passed a resolution in Ohio, for example, to put Canada on a watch list as one of the nations that persecutes Christians. It was unbelievable. Congress people started to talk. Senators started to talk. Put pressure on...
Which then puts a big light on Canada.
On Trudeau. I became an American hero, literally. And I got a standing ovation in American Capitol. Like standing ovation. I just came back from Washington, D.C. I had a meeting with senators, Congress people. I was treated like an American hero. It was incredible. Everywhere I go right now, I got invited to Republican Party conventions and stuff like this. So they helped me. They activated whatever they could, and they unleashed this, rage for justice against this injustice. And I faced the sentencing September last year.
Yep.
I received the last phone call from the fixers, and they said, it's all arranged, pack your bags, you're not coming out, you're going to prison. So I said my goodbyes to my wife. The whole family came, whole church, hundreds of people showed up at the courts. We filled the courts inside, outside. It was incredible. And you know what I did? I summarized everything that I did so far that enraged the government, and I said it again. On live television, on cameras, to the media, live streaming. I said everything I could think of that they were upset with me. And I said, if I am to go down, I'll go down with a big splash. And I said, I want you to know, I want the whole world to know, I'm not sorry for what I did. I'm super proud of what I did. And I encourage everyone, every man, every woman on earth to do the same thing. Rise up, stand up, and do not be afraid. And if this is my goodbye, so goodbye and do the right thing. And I walk into the courtroom, packed house, media, everyone was there. Gordon Krinky comes in and says, I can lock you. Oh, and by the way, after me being found guilty, they withdrew the terrorism charge. So they took me to the ringer, and then convicted me.
And then pulled it.
And a month later, they withdrew the terrorism charge because we challenged validity, constitutional validity of this charge. So that scared them, and they withdrew it, but they kept the other ones. And I faced, at that time, I faced 12 and a half years of imprisonment for my 19-minute sermon to the truckers. When I said to the Canadian people, stand for God and state given rights, but do it peacefully. No guns, no swords, do it the solidarity style. And he looked at me and says, I can send you to prison for 12 and a half years. The lawyers were going back and forth, and then he stops everything. I've never seen something like this before. I'm telling you, this is like a Hollywood movie. He stops everything and says, I have to go. And I have to consult this with others. He leaves us there in a court with all the media, with packed house, with lawyers, crown prosecutors, the whole 9 yards. And he goes. We don't know who he consulted with. We don't know who he called or who was in that room. He comes back, says, time served, you're free to go. I was sentenced to 61 days of imprisonment.
The days you've already served in jail.
But I already served in solitary confinement, which is like a 1.5
days. Okay.
And I walked out. Immediately we have appealed the decision, and it was accepted. And September the 10th is my appeal before the Court of Appeal.
This September the 10th?
Yes. And there's more. They really ticked me off at this moment. So I filed the biggest lawsuit in the history of this country. I'm suing Attorney General of Canada. I'm suing Chief of Police. I'm suing Calgary police officers. I'm suing RCMP. I'm suing prison. We served the prison. 2 days later, the director of prison resigned. We already took down the Premier of Alberta, resigned. We took down the Minister of Justice. I was voted out. We took down...
You're suing them all for the unlawful detention, unlawful arrests, unlawful behaviour, unlawful imprisonment.
More than that. If this was just for the monetary compensation, they would not be scared. I'm alleging conspiracy to commit crime. What I'm doing is, it's a lot more bigger, that's why they're so scared. Because what I'm doing is, I'm tying all those organizations together, and I'm alleging that they all conspired criminally against me and my family. And I'm going after Alberta Health Services. I'm going after hundreds of people within the government. And I'm telling you, they're already freaking out. They hired the most expensive and vicious lawyers in the country. And guess what they did? They all are conspiring together, unifying together to fight me. So next month we are in a court, because they are saying that this is outrageous, it should not happen, and they're all coming together with the same documents proving my point that they all conspired against me in the first place. I'm super, super happy about this, because I received a phone calls from the government saying, this will cost you millions of dollars and we will drag this for 10 years. I said, listen, tell your bosses this. you're dealing with Artur Pawlowski, and I'll fight you until Jesus comes back. And I don't care how much this will cost. I'll dedicate my rest of my life fighting you. And I want you to know I'll never stop until this is solved. Why? Because Canadian people deserve to know who did this to them and why. And civil litigation gives me more power than a criminal litigation. Because now I can look at every stone, I can look at everywhere. And that's what they're afraid of.
Because you can get all their communications.
That's right. That's what I'm after.
The court system. You want to see who was talking to who, what emails were sent, and the people really understand the levels that, because there was total. The governments conspired worldwide
100%.
to oppress people, to essentially kill people.
100%.
During the pandemic, to not give them the right medication, to scare and intimidate them, and I guess you were one of the people in the way in Canada of that.
So this lawsuit is giving me the ability to get the truth out. That's what I'm after.
That's what you hope if you're still here after, if I'm honest.
You know, if this costs me, let's say this will cost me $2 million, and of course I cannot do this by myself, but
so you have support here.
People chip in here and there.
Still through Rebel?
No.
Okay. So you have people
privately trying to raise the funds. I'm doing shows. I'm talking about it. People can go to streetchurch.ca. There is a legal fight. And here's an interesting part of this. I did a press conference with our lawyers, and every media outlet showed up. I mean, everyone was there. And they listened to the allegations. They saw the documents, freaked them out so much that they put a cap on the story. No mainstream media will talk about this. They will talk about other litigations, no problem. But this particular one scared them so much, because this is not simply you done wrong, I want money. Because you hurt me, now you gotta pay. That's not what I'm after. I'm after information. Again, remember we started this interview, information is more valuable than money. Because if you have the right information, you can change a nation. You can put people in prison if you have the right information. I'm looking for the information, and I'm willing to give that information to the Canadian people so they would know who did this to them, and most importantly, why this was unleashed on them. I know of bribery. I know that those people received some trinkets. And imagine all those different departments communicating, following me. I had police helicopters following me. I had undercover police following me. All of them, they were not doing this because they woke up in the morning and said, well, I miss Artur Pawlowski's face. Someone was sending them there. And health inspectors and the politicians, the memos, the letters, the phone calls, texts. I will have access to all of that. Imagine in my hands, knowing me now, I'm fighting those devils for 19 years, and they've tried everything to stop me. Imagine if I get this information, what is going to happen? Imagine if a man like me gets this information. I'm going to unleash that on everyone.
Do you think they're going to allow you to get that information?
Well, they still can assassinate me, I guess. They still can try that. They've tried it before, but so far, so good. God obviously has a plan for my life. He's not allowing them. I mean, I had pistols, I had knives, I had gangsters, I was in their custody in solitary confinement. Once they left the doors open, and I was already, because I was so much liked in prison, the prisoners came to me and said, if this happens, watch, because they will come. They will come to hurt you. And don't go with them to a washroom. If they push you, fight to the death, because they're going to really hurt you or kill you or rape you. So I already knew this. And I had a pencil. So I took a pencil with me, and I was in a concrete cell. And they opened the door. And the officer picked, if you know where I am, and they left the door open. I mean, this never happens. Never happens. Door never is left open, and officer picking and leaving it open. So I said my goodbyes and submitted myself to the loving hands of my God. And I said, whoever comes, dies first. Whoever comes first through those doors, it's the first one to go. And who knows, with my training, maybe I'll be able to take another one, or maybe another one. I used to be pretty good at what I was doing. So I was ready. I was ready to fight to the death. And then officer picked again and saw me like, I'm ready. Like, I'm ready, and you know, pencil sticking, like, I'm ready. And then they closed the door. So they, and then of course I talked about this the moment I was allowed to get a phone call. So every single day that I was allowed, but sometimes they kept me for a long time, not allowing me to leave the solitary. But every time I had a phone, every time, I'll tell everyone, and my wife was recording.
As public as possible.
My son was recording every conversation, and I said, publish it. Yeah, but they will hurt you. I don't care. Publish it. Let the whole world knows what is happening to me. That's the only hope we have. And the more pressure, the better. And that was all over the place. And here I am. And you see me scared, terrified, you know, watching, you know, my back. If they want to kill you, they will kill you. There's no way to stop an assassination unless God stops it. I mean, no one is safe. President of the United States of America is not safe. If you really want to take someone down, you will take that person down, if you want to. So I had so many meetings with Prime Minister, and I'm telling you, it's very easy. If you want to hurt another human being, it's very easy. So my only hope is the truth, standing for the truth, let the truth be my shield, my covering, sticking with God is my only option. And keep pushing, keep fighting.
Where can people watch this, continue to follow you to see what happens next, Arthur?
Well, the book is coming out, and in the book is already with the publisher, so even if they would take me down now, it's already there, it's being published. I'm naming them. I'm telling about the coercion, I'm telling about the conversations with politicians, including the premier. The offers that I had, everything is there. What they did to me in prison, the background story of the Get Out video, and you know, different arrests, truck convoy, my involvement, my intentions, you know, as much as I could. I mean, it would have to be thousands of pages, so it will be about 400 pages book. Lions Do Not Bow, so that's coming out end of August, beginning of September. And if you want to follow our story, go to streetchurch.ca. I'm all over the social media. They took my big multi-million, you know, views channel, YouTube. They killed it. And I'm the most shadow banned in Canada right now. It's insane. It's totally insane. But you still can see it. It's just it will not show me that you have seen it. So I can have 10,000 views and the next day 100, you know, they play those games with me. But I'm on X, I'm on Facebook still, Rumble, Facebook, you know.
You're back in court in September?
I'm back in court this month, next month.
Every month?
And September is
Same.
my appeal. So that will be done by the panel of 3 judges, and they will look into this case again. I am very confident that I'm going to win this again, because this was the first time in the history of Canada that a pastor's sermon was on trial. You know, I have not said a word in court. I was not allowed to say a word. I'm sitting over there, and there is a Crown prosecutors and special unit Crown prosecutors from this unit is a unit that does gangs, mafia, you know, organized crime. It's a special formed unit in the province of Alberta. Stephen Johnston is part of that unit. So they were going back and forth, and my sermon, word by word, was on trial. And I'm sitting over there as accused, facing 12 and a half years. Actually, at that time was more because the terrorism was still attached to it. And they're arguing what I meant when I said this. So they're talking about
the meaning of...
Right? Also, he said solidarity. What did he mean? Obviously, you morons, I meant what I've seen when I was growing up. solidarity movement that I saw with my own eyes, the civil disobedience, uprising, peaceful demonstrations of the Polish people. No. He meant violent. I said during my sermon that this is our Alamo. So my lawyer said, rightfully so, that what I meant, this is the fight that we are willing to pay the ultimate price for the children to die, if needs be. No. He was willing to murder. He was willing to kill people.
Yeah, they want to change the context of what you said.
Right? So this has never been done before. I was the first case that my words, my sermon was on trial back and forth, and I was convicted of everything. And I know that the real judges are going to look into this and they'll say, no, this is insane. Because if I'm convicted, then everyone is not safe in this country, including politicians. Politicians are yapping all the time, and they can be liable right now for everything they are saying, because it can be inciting mischief. Because what is inciting mischief? I have become a first Canadian ever to be convicted of this crime. Has never been done before. Inciting mischief is like when you have nothing. Mischief is when you have nothing.
Yeah, anything.
But inciting, like how you incite mischief.
Do you know what I think after sitting having this discussion with you? Because I was arrested this week. I'm thinking I'm lucky I got my passport back today and I just want to get out of Canada.
Yeah.
I'm gone, bruv. I'm out of here, mate. Because when I got arrested this week, they said I may be here months, and I just thought, but after hearing your story, Tamara Leach's story, after hearing the absolute abuse of power for people who simply exercise their free speech and their democratic freedoms, and to hear what people have gone through, Canada is a communist hellhole.
Yeah, it is.
Do people around the world realise this? But in fact, it's not just Canada. The abuse, do you know what? Everything we've sat and discussed, everything you've been through, I can mirror it. From the solitary confinement to the abuse of power, to the threats, to the intimidation, to all these things. And I think it's a verity that you find people that just stand in the face of it. I'm so glad I've had the opportunity to relay your message and for people to understand, because when I saw you stand up in church that day, I didn't realise your backstory to understand why you're the man that's continued to stand. Fascinating discussion, Pastor Arthur, man. I wish you luck, but more than anything, I wish you safety. I think you're going to need it in this head-on collision.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have worry. I think that we have been born for such a time as this. I think that we have been groomed by God Himself for such a time as this. I think that we have been prepared. You see, me growing up in hell and seeing the abuse of power and trying to survive absolute insanity, because every day was chasing after necessities of life. I'll never forget the lineups. There was a rumor. As a kid, I remember there was a rumor that there is coffee that will come to the store in 3 days. So my parents sent me from school, says, you got to stand in lineup for 3 days and 3 nights, and we're going to exchange for 1 kilo of coffee, because of a rumor that coffee might come. It didn't show up. We didn't know if it's going to come, but there is a potential it's going to come. You know, a sugar. The government was telling you how much sugar you can buy a month. Government was telling you. So when you grow up in hell, and I grew up in a very rough neighborhood, very rough, coal miners, kids, very tough. You had to be tough to survive there. Fights all the time, and when you're growing up in that kind of environment and you survive, and then of course Greece, very hard to labor, learning language and starting business in a hostile environment, in a very difficult environment with very corrupted politicians and police officers. Police officers were coming to my home for envelopes filled with cash, like on a regular basis. And I survived that, and then we finally escaped to Canada for our heaven, for peace, for freedom, for bread. And
For freedom.
All those things that happened, when we were growing up, now we can use. I'll survive. People like me will survive what's coming. Economy is coming down. Fiat currency is coming down. Economy is
The money
collapsing.
bubble's going to break.
And people like me, I know how to survive in poverty. I know how to survive when you need to barter and look for things and get things done. Most of the people are not equipped to survive what's coming. I have friends everywhere now, in government, in police. I have friends in the banking system. I hear things are coming to me. And lots of people came to realize that I was right from the very beginning. Now they're hurting. The government that's supposed to protect them is destroying them. So I think that all of this happened, those these crazy things that happened to us, I think it happened for a purpose, for a bigger purpose than just a cool story. That's how I can sit and say I was arrested so many times or faced courts. No, that's not the story. The story is that now I have the answers. I know how to fix the system. I can tell you what to do with homelessness. I can tell you where the problem with the banking system is. I can tell you that there is a problem with education. We were indoctrinated as kids. What we are facing right now is pure indoctrination, brainwashing of our young generation. I can talk about politics because I hang around with politicians all my life. I can tell you their tricks. I can tell you that what they say to you in front of a camera is not what really happens. I can educate you, tell you what to look for, how the system, how corrupted is the system. Because you gotta know, you have to know that there is a problem before you can fix the problem. It's like a doctor. And the doctor looks at you and says, "Sir, you have cancer. And in order for you to survive this, in order for us to save you, we need to cut it out." It's a bloody business. You gotta open the patient, you gotta take part of you out, and then you gotta sew it back. There is a scar, there is pain, but it's necessary. This pain is necessary to save you. Canada has cancer. Globe has cancer. Many of our beloved nations, there is a cancer in the lung, and it's painful, but we gotta cut it out. Will cause even more pain, but it has to happen in order to heal the lung. So I think what happened to you, you know intimately the level of corruption. You know, you did not read the book, you did not watch a Hollywood production, you know, I know. If I was ever given an opportunity of any political power, I turned Alberta into Saudi Arabia. It will be the richest province on earth because I know how to do it. I know where the problem is. Because there's enough money in the coffer. The problem is they're wasting it left and right. They're robbing us. They're stealing from us. You got to cut that beast down. You got to shave this massive government leech that is sucking the blood of the people and trim it. The government should never be involved in our affairs. The government should be involved in building roads and looking for other infrastructure. All those other things always historically were the church's business, community's business. What is the role of the government in my bed?
They want a role in everything now.
Right? They're involved in everything because you got to remember, and we started this interview with this, that this is the biggest attack on the middle class ever attempted in the history of mankind. And this is an attack not on our rights only, but on everything. They're turning us into slaves, literally. And slave has no say. Slave is to obey their masters. They're turning us, all of us, into two categories of people, super powerful and enslaved. And if you're okay with that, then I rest my case. Be a good slave and work for, Trudeau's or Biden's or Obama's or whatever the snake there is. But I was born to be free. I don't want...
If you're not okay with that, be inspired. Get ready.
Yeah, and the last thing I want to tell you is, look at me. I'm a nobody in the eyes of men, but I'm a somebody in the eyes of God. God is raising faceless, nameless nobodies in the eyes of men that will become somebodies in the eyes of God. If a man like me with a broken English, sometimes I'm thinking, did I say this word right or I'm inventing new words? It's poor English. If a man like me can do it, I'm telling you, you can do it as well. And that's the story. The story of Artur Pawlowski is not the story, look what horrible things the government did to him, but look what the amazing things God has done for him. After everything they've done to me, I'm a happy camper, got 3 children, wife, I travel, I inspire, I speak. I have a church, I feed thousands of people. I never stop.
Well, that's a beautiful ending to that podcast. Arthur, it's been inspiring, man. It's been a fascinating story. If you're watching this and you're one of the people that give me the opportunity to sit here and hear these stories, I'm incredibly grateful for the opportunity. And I think it's a great opportunity to hear people. You can hear so much common with every story that we're telling and hearing from. It's happening across the world, in every European country, in every Western nation. The oppression, the attacks, it's all the same. And it relates to your upbringing of communism and slavery. So we need to fight it. But thank you again for your time, Pastor.
Thank you.
I wish you luck, man. Thank you.
God bless you, man. Stay strong.
You too, brother. Well, I know you ain't going to back down. It's not like I need to say keep fighting. I don't need to say it. I know I don't.
Yeah. We are lions. Yeah. Lions do not bow before the hyenas. We eat them for breakfast. Remember that.
Do you hear that, Trudeau? Thank you, brother. Thank you.
God bless you, Tom.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carry on watching for more interesting guests. I'll talk to anyone. I'll debate anyone. I'll hear anyone's story. If you want to help me along that way, it's not free. I need your support. If you can support my family, that gives me my peace of mind. It means I can continue to do the work I do. I appreciate every bit of support, as do my children. It gives me the ability to fly them out here to see me so I can stay in constant contact with them. I'm deplatformed and I'm censored, so I need you. I need you to share this content and make sure you stay tuned for upcoming weekly guests, interesting guests, exciting guests. I'm Tom Robson and this has been my podcast, Silenced.